Welcome to our channel specialized in audiobooks in all fields. This is a supplement to the book. I hope you enjoy and interact with likes and subscriptions, and share the clip with those you love to benefit and enjoy. Henry Archean, a 29-year-old man who works for the Calloways. Shy, timid, a loner, thinks Mrs. Calloway is the devil and Lynde Calloway is an angel. Lynde Calloway, the oldest Calloway. Kind, warm, a family guy, thinks helping others is the most important thing in the world and that Henry needs to eat more. The first time Henry met Lynde was in late October. It was downpouring and Henry had forgotten an umbrella. He looked down at the pile of papers in his arms dejectedly. They were certain to get wet even if he sprinted to his car. He could only imagine what Mrs. Calloway would say if he sullied them. No, he didn't want to imagine it. It would give him nightmares. He'd barely known the woman for a week and he already flinched whenever she opened her thin mouth. Just as Henry was debating whether to leave the papers on the bench outside the hotel and pull up the car, an umbrella opened up over him. He turned and came face to face with the eldest son of the Calloway family. Lynde had a warm smile on his face, his eyes glinting with a hint of amusement. Afraid of a little rain, Henry was surprised Lynde knew his name. He'd only met Lynde once before when Mrs. Calloway had called Lynde into her office to scold him about a contract he'd signed without her permission. Even though Lynde was the same age as him, he appeared much older than any 24-year-old should. His face was worn, with heavy bags under his eyes. His posture was perfect, but he looked like he held up the world. And yet he still smiled, kindly and widely. Lynde held the umbrella closer to Henry. You can have this. Bennett never brings one, so I always keep a spare. He has the strangest issue about his car being in perfect condition. He won't sit in it if he's wet, but he never remembers to bring his own umbrella. Henry didn't know much about the younger Calloway, but somehow he could picture that. Seeing as how Ben didn't show up today, it's free for you to use, Lynde added, pushing the handle toward Henry again. Sorry, Henry said as he took the umbrella from him. Why are you apologizing? It was just always the first word on the tip of Henry's tongue. Around Mrs. Calloway, it seemed like the safest thing to say. Sorry, he repeated. Lynde chuckled. I can see you're getting used to my mother already. Has she threatened to fire you yet? No? Is she supposed to? It usually happens by the third day. She must like you, if this is how she treats people she likes. I don't want to know how she treats people she loves, Henry muttered. Lynde stared out at the rain for a moment, lip pressed. Not much different, I'd say. Plastering another smile on his face, he turned to Henry again. Anyway, I have to head back and the work Bennett didn't do today won't do itself. You're not leaving. It was already 7 o'clock at night. Most of the employees had left at 4. Henry had stayed to triple-check his work so Mrs. Calloway wouldn't criticize him the following day. No, I just happened to witness you loitering in front of the building on my way to the lobby and thought I could lend a hand. Go take a good rest, Henry nodded gratefully. The second time Henry met Lynde, it wasn't pleasant. How could you have messed this up? Mrs. Calloway screeched at the eldest Calloway, slamming her hands down upon his walnut desk. The force caused the coffee Henry had just brought Lynde to slosh over the edge of the cup. She was mad. Henry had never seen her this mad before. What were you thinking? Are you really this foolish? Do you really want to be the company head? Do you think I'd think you were suitable after this? She continued, growing more and more hysterical. Henry watched, wide-eyed and terrified. He felt like he should call the cops. Lynde remained perfectly calm. Or he seemed calm, at least. He reached for a napkin to wipe up the spilled coffee, avoiding his mother's angry gaze. Do you have no words for yourself? She snapped. I'm sorry, he replied simply. Sorry. That's all you have to say for yourself. Maybe I should start teaching your brother more. He obviously has more common sense than you. Do you not realize how great a merge this could have been? Do you know how much money you lost us? Henry felt like covering his ears. Her voice reminded him of nails on a chalkboard. Lee inclined his head. I sincerely apologize, Mother. It won't happen again. Letting out an irritated puff of hair, she placed her manicured hands on her waist. You're lucky I have somewhere to be. This better not happen again. Otherwise you can say goodbye to the resort in Hawaii. Why should I back you when you won't back the company? Are you listening to me? Yes, Mother, after you've finished your work for the day. Go finish Bennett's. Your punishment for making a mockery of our company. You better think about what you've done. There was no response from Lee, and Mrs. Calloway turned on her heel, clacking loudly out of the room. Henry stood rooted to the spot, too afraid to follow after her. A deep sigh came from Lee. Why do you let her speak to you like that? Henry asked. She's my mother, but, can I tell you something? Lee asked. Yes, Henry answered. The company my mother wanted to strike a deal with is headed by a man named Gary Larson. According to another company head, he embezzles. On average, they pay their female employees almost 50% less than they pay their male employees. On average, 30% of female employees have said they've felt sexually harassed verbally by him. They've been audited multiple times, and I have no doubt they falsify their taxes. If our companies ever merged, we would go under when they were finally caught, and I have no doubt a criminal like him will be caught eventually. Henry tried to comprehend it. How much digging had Lee done? How did he know so much about the other company? Why don't you tell your mother that? Lee smiled bitterly. Gary Larson also happens to be someone my mother has always relied on and trusted. Our family friend. I don't want her to know what kind of man he actually is. She's cruel, but she's honest and hard-working. She would be hurt if she found out. Won't she try to resolve the relations? His expression hardened. I ended it, he said firmly. There are no more relations. Gary will step down quietly. Henry decided Lee could be as intimidating as Mrs. Calloway. Fortunately, Lee seemed to only use his wicked power for righteous deeds. What about the extra work you have to do? I owe it to Bennett, anyway. She'll probably take some of her anger out on him. You're a good son, Henry said. And brother, I try, he responded, strained. I really try. The third time Henry met Lee was a few days after the incident with the merger. Mrs. Calloway was away on business, and Henry had been at the main hotel all day, doing some much-needed organizing. He felt a lot more comfortable when she wasn't around. It was nice to not have to walk on needles around her. There was a knock on the office door, and Lee entered, holding up a hand in greeting. Am I interrupting? Henry shook his head. He was just about done for the day, anyway. Do you need help with something? The corners of Lee's mouth twitched. I guess you could call it help. I'd like to just call it going out for a drink with a friend. Me. Can't we be friends? In most cases, employees and employers couldn't be friends. But Lee wasn't exactly like any other employer Henry had known. Sure. Let me lock up the office. On their way out of the building, Henry noticed just how beat Lee looked. The oldest Calloway always looked much more haggard than his brother or mother, but today Henry could almost feel the fatigue rolling off him. Their driver brought them to a pub called McAllen's. Lee's face brightened a little as they entered the tavern, the jolly atmosphere inside immediately affecting him. Henry felt a little out of place. He was more the stay-at-home, be-on-the-internet type of guy. I've had a rough day, Lee told him. So get drunk with me. You didn't pin me as the drinking type. Lee shrugged his shoulders, and a waitress came up, asking if they'd rather be seated in a booth or at the bar. They ended up in a booth, menus placed in front of them. Henry stared at the menu. He didn't have much money left after paying his bills and rent. A couple drinks were pushing it, but he hadn't wanted to turn Lee down. Order what you want, Lee told him. I'm putting it on the company card. It's okay. I'm not very hungry, Henry said. So the peanut butter and jelly you ate for lunch was more than enough? Lee asked, leaning across the table at him, expression skeptical. Henry could feel heat creep up the back of his neck. How did Lee know what he ate for lunch? Besides, there was nothing wrong with PB&J. It was cost-efficient and somewhat tasty. Lee smiled his trademark smile, kind, warm, knowing, and tapped the menu. Eat something. Feeling slightly humiliated, Henry scanned the menu and ordered a hamburger when the waiter returned. And, after being called a child for trying to order a Coke, he and Lee both ordered beers. This is just what I needed, Lee sighed as he took his first swig of liquor. I've been dealing with hotel complaints today. There have been some pretty angry patrons lately. So on top of all my usual paperwork and duties, I've had people screaming in my ear all day. I probably should have just left it to the customer service managers, but they seem to be swamped at the front desk. But you seem busy too. Yeah, but I'm going to be the owner one day. I want my employees to actually like me, unlike my mother. If I can get on their good side by helping them out when I can, I will. That's respectable, isn't it? Lee responded, eyes twinkling. I know it doesn't sound like much, but this kind of stuff just wears away at you. Like being in a dark room for too long with no light. Henry wanted to say he understood, but did he really? Lee's life was completely the opposite of Henry's. The only thing Henry was responsible for was an apartment, a car, and Mrs. Calloway's mundane tasks. Lee was responsible for thousands of employees and even more customers. As the night grew on and Lee grew drunker, Henry learned more and more about the heir to Calloway hotels. He was smart, benevolent, and selfish, and he cared about his younger brother more than anything else in the world. I love Bennett, Lee said. My little brother. He's cute, isn't he? He's a bit of a brat though. Yeah, he is, Henry agreed, alcohol allowing him to say things he'd never dream of saying while sober. He hadn't met Bennett too many times, but usually, the younger Calloway was complaining about something. That's why I work so hard, Lee continued, chugging the rest of his Samuel Adams. Even days like today where I'd rather just not exist, I have to keep going. You know, Henry didn't know. Bennett can never have my position. Henry didn't think he heard Lee right. He'd never expected Lee to be like this. Was he purposely doing all the work so Bennett wouldn't have a chance? You want to keep it all to yourself. Lee shook his head, wrinkling up his face. I don't want this. I don't know what my life looks like to you, Henry, but it's hell to me. All I do is work. I'm never alone. My mother is everywhere. I can't even decide what to eat for breakfast. She's been trying to set me up with her friend's daughter since age 14. Why don't you step down then? I can't do that to Bennett. Why? What if he wants to be the CEO? Even if he did, I couldn't do that to him. He doesn't understand it now. This isn't something anyone should want. If one of us can be free, I want it to be him. Lee's words hung heavy in the air, and at first Henry didn't know what to say. Then he frowned. Why don't you ask for more free time? The less I do, the more work falls to my mother, Lee told him. Good. I'd see less of her. After realizing what he said, Henry's eyes widened. I didn't mean that. Sorry. Lee's hand shot over his mouth as he began to snicker. It's okay. I think that sometimes too. But she works a lot. Probably more than me. Traveling takes its toll on one's body. You know, she's my mother. I have to help her. We lost our father a couple years ago, so she's been taking on both workloads. The least I can do is help with what I can. I think you're too much of a nice guy. I could say the same thing about you, shy guy, Lee countered. You should stick up for yourself sometimes. Henry sipped at his beer. Yeah, right. If he stood up for himself, Mrs. Calloway would throw him out on the streets. If you're feeling overwhelmed, ask me for help. I'll do what I'm able to if I have free time. I feel bad that you have to work for my mother. It must be rough. It is. Lee's eyes lit up. Instead of just helping me in your free time, why don't you become my assistant? How I'd treat you nicer than my mother, he offered, a grin spreading across his face. How about it? Would your mother allow it? I'm sure I could convince her. Henry didn't even have to consider it. It's not like I would protest. Well, I'll see what I can do then, Lee said, nodding to himself. 1 week later, Henry was working for Lee, leaving smelly old Mrs. Calloway by her lonesome. Just kidding. She hired another secretary immediately. She'd already had one lined up because she was getting sick of Henry's timidness. Poor Henry. But I guess it worked out for both of them. Henry stopped counting the times he met up with Lee. Now that he was working for him, he saw Lee every day. Gone were the days of being reluctant to go to work, and were the days where Henry actually woke up early to go in, only to be greeted by Lee and a cup of coffee. Lee hadn't been exaggerating about the workload he had. Henry almost couldn't keep up with everything. But Lee never yelled at Henry for being too slow or threatened to fire him for bringing Lee the wrong contract. Instead, they worked together on everything, and then Lee would treat Henry to lunch on their break. Then sometimes after work, they'd head out to McAllen's for an after-work drink. Sometimes Henry wasn't sure if Lee was his boss or his best friend. Lee also made Henry help out Bennett sometimes. The younger Calloway had no tact. He said whatever came to mind, no matter how insulting. In fact, one of the first few things Bennett ever said to Henry was, "You work for a multi-million-dollar company and you're wearing a $50 suit." Henry was horribly embarrassed, but Lee assured him that Bennett hadn't meant to insult him. He just didn't know how to talk to people properly. A side effect of growing up with people who bowed at your feet for a chance at wheedling their way into your success, Lee said. Still, the next day Lee took Henry to one of the fanciest suit shops he'd ever been to and put a couple outfits on the company's credit card. "Good thing we're the same size," Lee commented, sending Henry a wink. Henry didn't feel quite as bad knowing that it wasn't Lee's money he was spending, but more likely Mrs. Calloway's. One of the last times Henry saw Lee was inside the main office at the main hotel, in the middle of the night. Henry had forgotten his laptop charger and had run back into the building to snag it, coming across Lee in the process. He'd been sitting in the dimly lit room, head in his hands. When Henry had turned on the light, Lee jumped, eyes growing wide. It was the first and only time that Henry had caught him off guard. "Sorry," Henry apologized sheepishly. "It's okay," Lee responded, his voice scratchy and low. Upon closer look, Henry could tell that something wasn't quite right with Lee. Lee's eyes were bloodshot, like he'd gone a week without any sleep. His cheeks were sunken, giving him a gaunt appearance. "Are you okay?" Henry asked. Lee nodded. "I'm fine." Somehow Henry doubted Lee would tell him even if he wasn't feeling fine. "You should head home. It's almost midnight. You know I trust you a lot, right, Henry?" Lee said abruptly. Henry paused. "In this world, you're probably the closest person to me besides Bennett. If anything ever happened to me, you would help him, right? You'd help Bennett." Looking back, Henry should have known right then and there that something was wrong. He'd had a weird feeling in his gut, but he'd brushed it off. "Of course I'd help Bennett," Henry told Lee. "I really think you should get some sleep. When you don't, it worries me. You need a full 8 hours." Lee chuckled a little bit. "You're funny, Henry." "Thank you." Henry didn't know why Lee was thanking him. The last time Henry met Lee was in late October, nearly 6 years after the day they'd first met. It was raining. Henry hated the rain now. The day had finished up and Henry was filing away the last few papers on his desk when Lee appeared, poking his head through the office door like usual. "Hey, Henry," unlike usual, his voice sounded flat instead of happy. "Hi, Mr. Calloway. Work's over. You can call me Lee." Henry hesitated. He always felt unprofessional when he called Lee by his first name. Like he didn't even have the right to. "Henry, please call me Lee," Lee said again. "Okay, Lee." Lee's eyes brightened, but not to the usual amount. Something was off about him. Henry couldn't quite place what though. Lee's hair was a little messier than usual, but he had just worked 10 hours. "Want to get drinks tonight?" Lee asked. "Bennett and I are going to McAllen's." Henry thought about the work he had to do at his apartment. There was no way he could leave that mess any longer. He'd promised himself he'd clean it up after work. "Sorry, Lee. I've got a lot of stuff to do today." Lee's face fell. "You can't do it tomorrow." "No. I've been putting it off for a while." "That's okay. It's just been a while since we've last gone out. I wanted to treat you to a beer one more time." Henry smiled a little. Next time, Lee didn't return his smile. Another sign Henry should have realized. Lee always smiled. He always had that dumb, kind, warm, everything is okay smile. But he didn't. For Lee, nothing must have been okay. Thank you, Henry, Lee spoke up again as Henry locked the filing cabinet. For all your help. You don't need to thank me. It's my job. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. Remember what I said about helping Bennett? Henry nodded. Does that still hold true? Will you help him? No matter what, yes. Why are you asking me? Lee shook his head. It's nothing. I gave you a raise. Henry's eyes widened. What, you've worked so hard. You deserve it. I hope it can lead you to a little more happiness in your life. Maybe with it, you can eat full lunches. Lee's eyes narrowed a little bit. You have to eat good meals. Henry nodded slowly, a frown working its way onto his face. Thank you. He should have been happier about the raise, but something felt off. He couldn't shake the feeling. Something bad was going to happen. Oh, Bennett's calling me. We're heading out. Lee paused. You're my best friend, Henry. Don't forget that. Be safe tonight, Henry told Lee. Lee smiled finally, but it looked sad. You too, Henry. Stay safe. Henry got the call at 3 o'clock in the morning. Henry? It's Bennett. He could hear the shaking of the younger Calloway's voice. Lee's been in an accident. Bennett's POV. Henley is an odd girl. She never says what she wants to say. Anyone who watched her would be able to tell. That moment of hesitation where her eyes grow fierce, what she's thinking then, that's what she wants to say. But then a split second later, she relaxes and says the thing that will keep the peace. Her control is impeccable. But I want to hear what she wants to say. I don't want to see her biting something back for my sake. For my mother's sake. Damn it, Henley. What did I just say? I don't care what you think you should do. Tell me what you want. You have to tell me what you want. You have to let me know I'm not on my own with this. Anxious. That's how I felt. It wasn't familiar to be the one doing the chasing. Women usually chase me. Now I realize just how scary it was. I knew I should have been cautious like Henley was being, but what the future held didn't matter to me right now. I didn't care. Come what may, I just wanted her to tell me how she felt. I just wanted to kiss her. Her hesitation was driving me crazy. I was about to grab her and kiss her anyway, but I didn't want to be disrespectful. She wouldn't appreciate that. Tell me, Henley, I said, holding her gaze. Yes, she finally answered. The word didn't need an explanation. Kissing her wasn't like anything I'd experienced before. My senses were all messed up. Our lips pressed together too hard, then too soft, barely a kiss. She pulled away and I wondered if I ruined it. No one usually pulled away. I gave her a second to step back if she wanted to. She didn't. I smiled, kissing her again. If I had to choose a favorite feeling, it would be how I felt kissing Henley. My hands gripped her hips, pulling her body flat against mine. Pulling her body a little too hard. Ow, she cried as our teeth clacked together. I froze up, feeling cold embarrassment seep through my veins, automatically shoving her away from me. She stumbled back, almost tripping in the sand, and I briefly thought about throwing myself into the sea. This wasn't like me. What was I so nervous for? Calm down, I told myself. Of course, now would be the time I make a fool of myself. Henley gave me a sharp look, but her face was bright red. Is this how you usually kiss girls? Not normally. No, I answered, my pride slightly offended. I excelled in kissing. Then realizing what I said, he crept up the back of my neck. Not that I've been kissing any women lately, the wind blew, causing her hair to cover her face. I immediately reached out to push it away, wanting to see her expression. What was she feeling? Was she anxious like I was? Happy? Scared? I could tell she was uncomfortable. Her hand cupped her shoulder and she pursed her lips a little. A grin snuck across my face. What, she asked? You're charming, I answered. She narrowed her eyes a little, which made her look all the more so. I went in to kiss her again and she stepped back, dodging me. Puzzled, I raised my eyebrows. "We need to talk about this," she told me. "Or we could kiss again." "I wouldn't mind." "Bennett, what is there to talk about?" I asked her, feeling a little indignant. Why wasn't she all over me? She had permission to be. I couldn't wait to be all over her. "What's happening right now is what we need to talk about. You kissed me," I pointed out. She opened her mouth to retort and quickly snapped it shut, turning her head away from me. "That's the problem." "How so?" "Remember all that stuff you said to me when we first met? Don't wear my chain story clothing. Don't drive my car to your house. Don't act like I'm not rich and pretend to be someone from France while I can't even speak French. It's all part of this problem," she explained. I couldn't really argue with her. She did have a point. It was a huge problem, but we were both well aware of it. It wasn't like we weren't pretending it wasn't. Why should we worry about that right now? Because I'm the type of person who overthinks things and creates problems that weren't there in the first place, she said, folding her arms over her chest. "This is hard for me, Bennett. It was hard to even kiss you. We started this because of the contract." "Forget the contract," I interrupted. I didn't even want to think about it anymore. "That's over." It's probably been over for a while now, but neither of us wanted to admit it. "What's more to discuss?" Her face scrunched up cutely and I couldn't tell whether she was embarrassed or offended. "But let's just enjoy this moment together and talk about the other stuff later," I offered, closing the distance she put between us and bringing my face closer to hers. Her eyes widened slightly and I smiled. "See? The more I enjoyed it now, the harder it will be when I lose it later," she responded quietly, her eyes searching mine. I frowned, pulling back from her. "Why are you assuming you'd lose me? You said it yourself. Someone like me could never be with someone like you." Her tone wasn't bitter. It wasn't accusing. It was accepting. My skin prickled uncomfortably and I clenched my teeth together, suddenly feeling gross in my own skin. I hated it. I hated my past self. I hated the me who would tell Henley she wasn't good enough for me. How hard was it for Henley to admit that she liked me? What had she been thinking when she realized it? Had she been trying to talk herself out of it? Had she thought she'd never be a good match for me? Had she just kept putting herself down? Was it that hard for her? I gripped her arm and pulled her back to me, wrapping my arms around her shoulders and pressing her against my chest. "I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing?" she asked, her voice muffled. I realized I was practically suffocating her and relaxed my grip. "For whatever thoughts that have been in your head recently. I don't want you to feel that way anymore. If they ever make you feel that way, you have the right to hit me." "Hit you?" I nodded. "As hard as you can." She was quiet for a moment and then she chuckled. "What?" I asked. "Hitting you would be like trampling on a flower." I couldn't do it. "What's that supposed to mean?" She shrugged. "Nothing." I'd brought my face closer to hers again, challenging her. "I'll have you know I'm actually pretty robust." "Did you really just use the word robust?" "Hey!" Henley cried out as I easily lifted her off of her feet and into my arms. She immediately wrapped her arms around my neck and clung to me. "Are you impressed?" I asked her haughtily. Her face matched the sunset. "Are you drunk?" "No. I'm in a rather good mood though." "Don't you think this is romantic?" "Put me down. Only if you kiss me." Bennett, I pretended to lift her like I was lifting weights. "I could do this all day. Or you could just kiss me, pervert," she muttered, before pressing her lips against mine hard. Her hands moved to my face, holding it, as she sucked my bottom lip into her mouth. It was more than I expected and my whole body seemed to go into shock. She easily broke free from me then and shimmied down onto the sand. I stared after her, dazed. A ghost of a smirk traced her lips. Men. Blood rushed to my ears and I realized my pants weren't exactly as loose as they were before. With just a kiss. A 0.5-second long kiss. This woman was going to be the end of me. Before I could speak again, my cell phone started ringing. Mildly annoyed that someone was interrupting, I whipped it out, preparing to tell the caller off. I stopped short when the screen read Mother. My first thought was, how did she find out already? I checked around the beach, but Henley and I were by ourselves. Was someone spying on me? How were they so quick? I debated about not answering, but that would just make it more suspicious. Don't say anything, I told Henley before swiping to answer the call. Hello, where are you? Was her immediate response. I have a feeling you know where I am. You're not with Sebastian and you're not at our site, she said. If you've finished your work, come home. We have something we need to discuss. What's that? About that female you've been seeing? A ripple of irritation surged through me. I knew she was speaking like that on purpose. I knew she was trying to get a reaction from me. Her name is Henley, I said evenly. The Henley in question vigorously shook her head, holding up her arms. Don't bring me up. Are you sure that's her name? My mother asked me. She seems to rely on lying. Were you aware that she has not even spent a day in France? She doesn't even have a passport. I'm sure there are many other lies she's told you that aren't true. I tried to keep my face impassive as to not worry Henley, but I could tell by her paling face that I wasn't doing a great job. Did you do a background search on her? Why wouldn't I? Mom, I always do and I always will. We can't have a criminal tainting our family name. I didn't understand how my mother was a person. What was worse? I probably used to be just like her. We'll talk about this later. Cut off ties with that woman and don't speak to her again. She's most likely using you for your money. Don't let her alone in your house again. I clenched my hand around my phone. Was this really happening right now? I'd finally found out how Henley felt about me, only for this to happen. Why? What did I do to deserve this? I wanted to defend Henley, but I couldn't. Not if I wanted to have a chance at my mother considering her for me. I'm sure we were missing something. Sebastian will know. You can't trust Sebastian. He's from a family of lawyers. He's my best friend. I snapped at her. And I thought his mother was your best friend. You should be well aware that you're best friends with anyone who has connections, but friends with no one at the same time. She told me, voice sharp. Especially women who use their bodies to steal our money. Do you ever listen to yourself when you talk? I all but shouted. She was incredible. Did she have no respect for anyone? Did I touch a nerve? She asked tersely. I wasn't speaking of anyone in specific, but I see I may not be off the mark. Do not raise your voice at me. I barely held in a scoff. I'm not in the mood to talk to you right now, Bennett Calloway. Her tone became venomous. How dare you speak to me like that? I am your mother. Do you think your brother would appreciate this? There it was. It was always my brother. She always had to bring up Lee, no matter what. The fight left my body. I hung my head. I'm sorry, that girl is not a good influence on you. I'm sorry, I forced out again. Good. I'll see you when you get home. I let my hand drop to my side, my fingers curling around it so tight it hurt. A soft touch surprised me and I turned to see Henley peering at me worriedly. What happened? Does she know? Should I leave? No, I said immediately. Don't go. What happened? She found out you've never lived in France. I'm not sure if she did a full background check on you or not, but she knows some things. But it's easy to figure out whether you're the daughter of a supposedly prominent hotel CEO. Henley's gaze went past me, to the ocean. Her whole body appeared flush and I wondered what was going through her head. I can handle my mother, I told her, hoping to alleviate her worries. I'm not worried, she said simply. You're not. She tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear and nodded. What's the worst that can happen? Warn me not to date you. What could she threaten me with? I don't have anything. Well, that's true. She gave me a dirty look. Sorry, I apologized quickly. But even so, last time she upset you, and that'll be the last time that happens, too. If we're going to do this, whatever we're doing, we're going to have to deal with her anyway. Let's try to avoid her for now until she calms down, I suggested, but I found myself feeling a bit reassured. Henley seemed like she would be a good match for my mother. Henley nodded and rocked on the balls of her feet. Thinking about this is kind of weird. What is? You're like a fairy tale, she said. Then she blushed and cleared her throat. I mean, this is like a fairy tale. Rich guy and poor girl. Such a cliché, I'd say it's more of a surprise. I doubt this happens often. You're a rare case, I responded. She rolled her eyes. Yeah. I don't think normal people could deal with you like I do. Actually, many women vie for my affection. I'm a hot topic throughout the brokers, I informed her, gesturing toward my body. You know just how to charm a girl, I grimaced. I still needed to work on thinking before I spoke. I can charm you in other ways. Care to sleep with me tonight? Her jaw dropped and she stuttered out something coherent. I covered my mouth with my hand to hide my smile. You are a pervert, she accused. I waved her off. You can think about it. Let's head back for now. Sebastian's making a fire on the beach. Bennett, I started walking away from her, keeping my back to her so she couldn't see my expression. I felt the best I had in a long time. Never had I ever thought someone would come and brighten up my life like Henley had. Ironically, it was my mother I had to thank. If she hadn't tried to force me into a relationship I didn't want, I would have never met Henley. I turned to offer my hand out to the girl who'd been invading my thoughts for the past few weeks and realized she was still standing where she'd been before. She was staring at me, her arms slack at her side. What are you doing? I asked her. Her head slowly shook from side to side. She looked like she was going to be sick. I noticed her phone in her hand. Are you okay? I tried again, walking back over to her. Henley, I reached out to her and she slapped my hand away, jerking backward. Her eyes were wide and I realized something was definitely wrong. You, she started, but her voice failed. That strange feeling settled into my gut again. What's wrong? Henley, I've got to go, she said and started walking away from me. I easily grabbed her arm, stopping her. What's wrong? I repeated, unable to keep the edge out of my voice. Let me go, she said, trying to tug her arm out of my grasp. Just tell me what's wrong. Let go of me, she shrieked and I immediately let go, stunned at her outburst. Her eyes were wet and her mouth quivered for a moment as if she was about to speak, but before she did, she bolted across the sand. Henley, I cried after her. Wait, I tried to follow her, but the sand was slowing me down. She was out of my sight before I could even make it back to the restaurant. My mind was reeling. What was her problem? What could have happened in that 10 seconds? Everything was fine and then suddenly it wasn't. I pulled out my phone and called her, only for it to be rejected. Whatever happened, it wasn't good. Was it my mother? What had she said? What could have gotten such a violent reaction out of Henley? Why couldn't I have just one happy moment? Henley's POV. A knock came from the bedroom door. It shook as someone tried to open it, but I'd locked it, so it didn't budge. Henley, it was Sebastian. Bennett must have finally given up. I wasn't sure how long he'd been out there at this point, banging on the door, trying to get me to open it, but I couldn't see him right now. I couldn't talk to him. I couldn't get the image out of my head. The image of the double gold watches on his right wrist. The image of the back of his head as he walked away from me on the beach. The image of the back of his head at McKellen's bar. My chest felt tight again and I took a few deep breaths, trying to calm myself. I had to get home. This couldn't be right. Bennett couldn't have been at the bar. But somehow, I knew it was him on the video footage. Bennett was there the night my brother went to jail. Henley, can we talk? Just for a second. I knew it was wrong to ignore Sebastian, but I didn't want to see anyone. I wanted to watch that video footage and see for sure if that was Bennett on the screen or not. What if it was Bennett? I was scared to find out. Because if it was Bennett, there was that awful chance that Bennett knew about what happened that night. That maybe Bennett had done something wrong and placed the blame on my brother. But did he know that was my brother? Did he know who I was before he even met me? Or maybe he had put 2 and 2 together this whole time. Had he tricked me into liking him so I wouldn't do anything if I found out? Was everything a lie? Was this all to trick me? Stop it, I chided myself. Henley, Sebastian tried again. I shoved pillows over my head, trying to block my ears. I knew it was almost crazy to think that, just because there happened to be someone who looked just like my brother, didn't automatically make that person the one who stole and crashed the car. But it could make sense. Bennett was rich. Sebastian's dad was a lawyer. Brandon was drunk. It made sense. I had to get back to McKellen's. I had to go over the rest of that surveillance footage. Brandon didn't know who Bennett was. He wouldn't know whom to look for on the other recordings. But I would. If we could catch him leaving at the same time as Brandon. Then what? Would I call the cops? On Bennett? Could I do that? It scared me. It was even worse because I liked Bennett. I'd kissed the idiot. I'd wanted to take a chance. I didn't want it to be him. I had to catch the person, but I didn't want it to be Bennett. Henley at least let Ariana in. She's tired. You don't have to speak to anyone, but I don't want her to feel uncomfortable sleeping with Bennett and myself. Begrudgingly, I dragged myself out of my bed and over to the door. Only Ariana, I said through it. I promise. Unlocking the door, I pulled it open slightly, leaving just enough room for Ariana's slender body to slide through. After she was in, I quickly shut and locked it again. What did Bennett do? She demanded, quick as always to take my side. Do you remember the surveillance video? She nodded. Remember how I thought I saw someone familiar? I heard my voice waver and I swallowed before speaking again. I think it was Bennett, what she gasped. We were on the beach and he turned around and I was staring at the back of his head and it just hit me. It was so familiar. And then I looked down. He was wearing 2 gold watches on the same wrist. Who does that? Wouldn't that mean Bennett was the person in that video? Even if it was, I don't know. I don't know what to do. She glanced back at the door and then made a movement toward it. We beat the shit out of him and demand he tell us the truth. I snatched up her wrist, forcing her to stop. No, it might not be him. I could be overreacting. I don't think you're too far off. We didn't really think about it, but your brother and Bennett are similar. They both have dark hair. They are about the same build. From behind you really could mistake them, Ariana mentioned. Especially since normally people don't wear 2 watches. That's definitely weird. Yeah, but I didn't want to hear that. I wanted to hear Ariana tell me off, saying I was wrong, and I was stupid to even think that. But knowing she thought it could be Bennett too made me feel nauseous. Did he know who you were this whole time? Is that why he chose you? How could he do this to you? She suddenly hissed. What kind of sick person is he? I don't want it to be him, I mumbled. She immediately dropped her angry expression and pulled me into a hug. I'm sorry, Henley. We shouldn't jump to conclusions. Tomorrow when we get back, we'll go directly to McKellen's and figure this out. I know it's pointless to say, but try not to think about it. If only it were so easy. I couldn't erase Bennett's face from my mind. I couldn't erase the feeling of him sweeping me off my feet as if I weighed less than a feather. There was no way it was Bennett. He wasn't the type of person who could do this to someone. Was he? The next morning, I woke up feeling anxious and worn out. I'd barely slept the night before, kept awake by my relentless thoughts. After Ariana woke up, I sent her to scope out the situation and see if Bennett was around. She came back with a negative and I relaxed a little, slipping out of our bedroom to use the bathroom. Sebastian's massive form stepped in front of me as soon as I exited and blocked my way. His arms were crossed and he resembled a very unimpressed blockade. What's wrong, Henley? Nothing, I muttered, unable to look him in the eye. We're friends, you can tell me. I glanced up at him, that same icy feeling as before seeping through my skin. Was he my friend? Or was he tracking me? He was from a family of lawyers. He knew the stratagem. I need some time first, I said. Right now, I couldn't think properly. I didn't want to doubt Sebastian, but I couldn't help but do so. It was wrong to even think he would be a part of this, but that voice in the back of my head taunted me. I needed to be alone so I didn't doubt my friends. Sebastian studied me for a moment. Whatever it is, Bennett doesn't know what he's done wrong. If you're going to give him a 180 with your attitude, he deserves to know why. I know I said I'm your friend, but Bennett is my best friend. And as his best friend, it's my duty to stick up for him, and it's my duty to stick up for Henley. How do you know it's not Bennett's fault? Ariana interjected before I could respond, coming out of the bedroom to stand beside me. I tried to subtly shake my head at her. As much as I appreciated her support, I didn't want to get anyone else involved in this. It didn't need to become awkward and uncomfortable for everyone. If you tell me what happened, I can help, Sebastian said, his mouth twisting to the side. Judging by your standpoints, you believe Bennett is in the wrong about whatever is happening between you two. I can figure it out when I get home, I told him. I don't want to say anything unnecessary to him or to you, and I probably will if I talk about it, so please leave it alone for right this moment. I'm sorry. I'm freaking out and I'm not sure how to handle it. Well, fortunately for you, Bennett has decided to give you space. He'll take a later plane home by himself. I'll still be with you too, however. I hope you don't mind. I could tell by the formal tone Sebastian was using that he was upset, but I didn't know what I could say to reassure him. I couldn't even reassure myself. But I did know I didn't want to accuse anyone of anything, so being alone was the best decision for now. The plane ride back wasn't nearly as bad as the plane ride to Hawaii. Maybe it was because I'd already felt sick before I boarded the plane. Or maybe it was because I was too distracted by what was happening. I didn't care how I got home, I just needed to get home. Which reminded me that my home was Bennett's house and I couldn't go back there yet. If worse came to worse, I had money to stay at a hotel until I could figure something out. When we landed, Sebastian brought Ariana and I immediately to coffee house so I could pick up my car. Do you want me to drive? Ariana offered as I fumbled around my carry-on for my keys. No. I should probably run it since it's been a while, I answered. If I can even freaking find my keys. I know I packed them. Oh, got them. Let's go. Ariana slid into the passenger seat as I turned the key. It felt nice to be in my own car again. I'd been getting too used to Bennett's car and the other dumb BMWs he had when he used a driver. I turned on the radio to keep myself calm on the ride over to McAllen's. Ariana called Wilson, letting him know that we were on our way. My hands gripped the steering wheel. I felt hot. Beads of sweat were forming on my forehead and my stomach continuously clenched. Henley, red light. I slammed on the brakes, causing our seatbelts to lock and strangle us briefly. Ariana stared at me with wide eyes and I swallowed hard. Sorry, chill dude, she said. We were almost there. Don't get us killed on the way. Sorry, I repeated, turning the music a little louder. Suddenly the song car radio held a lot more meaning to it. When we arrived, I practically ran into the building, heading straight for Wilson's office. A few customers gave me strange looks, but I didn't give them a second thought. Henley, how are you? Wilson greeted me, smiling widely and warmly. It fell slightly as he took in my appearance. Are you okay? Can you play me that tape you showed us the other time? I asked him. And are there cameras that have different angles we can look at? Yes. It's all set up for you. Take a look. I'm going to go get you some water, he told me, urging me into the seat in front of the computer. I glanced at Ariana. She nodded at me. I sat down at the computer. It took no longer than 2 seconds to see that the man on the video footage was Bennett. I knew his stupid hair. I knew that stupid suit. I couldn't believe I didn't recognize him before, even without the dumb double watches. Was it because I never would have suspected him? Now he was all I could see. It was clear as day. It's him, Ariana gasped. Thud, thud, thud. I could hear my pulse pounding. When I get my hands on him, oh man, he's going down. Wait, I said, reaching for the mouse and clicking through the video footage. There were 8 more screens showing different parts of the bar. Bennett being there didn't assure anything. It didn't automatically mean he'd set up my brother. It could have been a coincidence that both of them were there on the same day. Maybe wearing 2 watches was more popular than I thought. I couldn't get ahead of myself and freak out. It was important was to see if he left at the same time my brother did. I fast-forwarded the tape. Bennett stayed at the table he was at, slowly drinking the alcohol in front of him. My brother had left the restaurant at midnight, so only if Bennett left at midnight too would it mean something 11:15 p.m. Bennett pulled out his phone and called someone 11:30 p.m. Bennett stayed seated, 11:45 p.m. Bennett stayed seated, 11:50 p.m. Bennett stood up, appearing to speak to someone. He made like he was going to move, but after a second he sat back down. 12 a.m. Bennett stayed seated. I stared at the screen. Bennett ordered another drink. He didn't leave the restaurant. I watched until 12:30 a.m. before I hit the pause button. I didn't understand. Was this really just a coincidence? Did Bennett just happen to be at the pub the same night as my brother wearing almost exactly the same thing? What were the odds of that? Ariana placed her hand gently on my shoulder, startling me. He didn't leave, Henley. Hearing the relief in her voice made me realize I'd been sitting tense and rigid this whole time. My shoulders relaxed and I leaned into the seat. It wasn't Bennett. I panicked for nothing. I'd also made a fool of myself for nothing. Maybe it really was just a coincidence. I doubted Bennett unfairly. Poughkeepsie wasn't a huge town and McAllen's was popular. There was a pretty good chance of them being there at the same time. I guess I just really wanted someone to blame. Even Bennett. I bit my lip, feeling horribly guilty. We should have just watched the tape all the way through the first time, then this wouldn't have happened. I'm sure Brandon already did, Ariana sighed, twirling the ends of her hair around her finger. Wilson appeared with a couple of glasses of water, placing the tray down in front of us. What are you guys looking for? I was just checking something, I told him, reaching for the water. Now that I wasn't feeling anxious, I felt parched. The cold water did wonders to cool me down. Is something happening? Your brother's lawyer stopped by again last week and now you two are here again. Richard was here. No, Wilson said, shaking his head. The new guy. I think his name is Jeremy. He was looking at a different recording though. 11 really. Which recording? Wilson shook his head, offering me a regretful look. I honestly couldn't tell you the exact one. But he seems like a good guy, Henley. I'm sure he knows what he's doing. I know you want to investigate on your own, but you should really leave it to the professionals and just focus on yourself. I pursed my lips at him. Yes, because Richard is so competent. Richard's just a dick, Wilson responded, rolling his eyes. Ariana snorted and I grinned. True. Did you find what you were looking for at least? I nodded. Yeah, thank you. I feel a lot better. Good. I'm glad. Are you guys hungry? It's on the house. I won't say no to free food, Ariana replied happily, giving him a cheeky grin. My stomach rumbling was my response to that question. I'd barely been able to force myself to eat anything and now I was starving. And exhausted. We sat in the private dining area to eat so we didn't have to deal with the late night crowd. The whole time I kept glancing at my phone, seeing if Bennett had tried to contact me. Was he even home yet? I hadn't asked Sebastian how much of a later flight Bennett had caught. I thought about texting him first, but I was embarrassed and ashamed. I'd even made him take a different flight than us. What kind of person was I? My cheeks warmed at the thought of facing him. To top it all off, I treated him like crap right after we kissed. He probably had the wrong idea completely. Thinking of Bennett, Ariana teased, pointing a forkful of Post-it at me. Your face is all red. Yes. I acted like a 3-year-old. What am I supposed to say to him? I said, pressing my cheek into the cool wooden table. Sorry about what happened. Should I suck your dick and make it up to you? I shot right back up, my jaw dropping. Ariana, she smirked. Just a suggestion. I mean, it'd probably work. But no. We're not even dating or anything. Technically you guys are. No, we ended the contract. Now it's just confusing. Her eyes widened. What? You ended the contract? Why? When we went on that date yesterday, he asked me if I wanted it to be a real date, and I said yes, and then he kissed me and then said we should end the contract, and I'm not sure what's happening now. I rushed out. Oh. And also, his mom called him and she Googled me and now knows I'm not from France. Wait. Since when were you from France? I threw my hands up in the air and groaned. Exactly, aside from that though, you kissed. How was it? Tell me, she demanded, her eyes crinkling in excitement. AWW. He's so sweet. I thought he would be. Did he taste like diamonds and filthy rich lapdogs? No, and that's weird description, but he smelled really good. So are you guys actually dating? This is like a true rags to riches story. Holy shit. I stabbed at my pasta with my fork, pursing my lips. Like I said, I don't know what's happening. But I did run away from Bennett after we kissed like the freaking main character in a soap opera, so who knows what he's thinking. I'm so jealous, she sighed dreamily. Don't be. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I really don't think it's a good idea to even try a relationship. If his mother is already suspicious of me, I really don't want to deal with it, but the idea of leaving Bennett wasn't something I wanted either. It was so complicated. Why was this my life? An obnoxious smile crossed Ariana's face and she reached over to pat my hand. Oh, Henley. Sometimes you have to fight for love. I'm not really a fighter. I can barely lift 20 pounds. You know, I get a good feeling when two people are meant to be together, and you and Bennett give me that feeling. Creepy. She scrunched up her face at me. Henley, did you feel that way about my brother and yourself? I felt lots of ways about your brother. I faked throwing up into my pasta and she threw a piece of broccoli at me. You'll thank me later. Anyway, why? She batted her eyelashes at me. You'll see. We left McCullen's a little before 11, remembering that both of us had an early morning shift the next day. Bennett still hadn't texted me and I wasn't sure whether to go back to his house or not. If I was him, I wouldn't want to see me. That was for sure. After I dropped Ariana off and she left, I sat in the parking lot, unsure of what to do. Bennett had told me not to bring my car to his house, so it wasn't like I could drive there. I scrolled through a couple hotels in the surrounding area, grimacing at their prices. Even now that I had money, spending it on useless stuff still made me reluctant. It would probably be no issue to stay in my car for one night. It was big enough. A sudden tap on my car window scared the shit out of me, causing me to fling my phone across the car. For a second I was too scared to look. It could have been a hobo, but I finally gathered up the courage to peek out, only to see Bennett staring down at me. I was totally unprepared and I turned away, my limbs locking up like a doll. I know you saw me, Henley, he called through the glass. Grimacing to myself, I stiffly turned back around, rolling down the window. Fine evening. Hey! Oh man, what did I just say? Kill me. I cried inwardly. Have you calmed down? Yes. If I made you that uncomfortable back on the beach, I won't try anything again. I shouldn't have. I overstepped a boundary. But please don't think about sleeping in your car and come back to my house. His voice was low and subdued. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. I blinked at him, my mouth falling slack. What? He thought I was acting like this because he kissed me? He thought it was his fault. Suddenly, I was embodying the scream. Come back home, Henley, he said softly. I flung open the car door, accidentally hitting him in the process. The scream intensified. Wait, I began, but he just grabbed my hand and started leading me over to his BMW. Just get in and let's go back so you can rest. We can talk about this tomorrow. Or we don't have to talk about it at all. I struggled to find the words to say. He had the wrong idea completely. Bennett, I'm tired from my flight, he cut me off. Can we please talk about this tomorrow? His tone brought me back down to earth and I stopped freaking out. I'm sorry, I finally managed to say. He opened the passenger door for me. If you're sorry, get in the car. I basically threw myself onto the seat. This made him pause for a moment, his features forming into a perplexed look. That was easier than I thought it'd be. I'm sorry, I repeated. I felt like I owed him 100 apologies. I shouldn't have treated you like that. I'm really sorry, it's fine, he said. But you even had a later flight. It's fine, he said again, more firmly. I'm just glad you're not mad anymore. My voice caught in my throat. How had I not realized just how much Bennett had changed? Or maybe he hadn't changed. Maybe he'd been like this all along. I didn't deserve someone like him. It was almost comedic to think I did. He deserved so much better. Henley's POV. For the next couple days, it was almost impossible to talk to Bennett. Once again he was gone before I woke up, arrived home after I fell asleep, or just locked himself up in his room. I felt bad and I just wanted to apologize to him. I knew he was thinking the whole thing was his fault. He probably thought I regretted us kissing, too. I didn't want him thinking like that, but I didn't have any chance to tell him that, since I had to make up for the hours I'd lost at coffee house while I'd been in Hawaii. I'd been working a lot too. I tried texting him a couple times, only to receive a text from Henry saying that Bennett was busy. Speaking of Henry, apparently he was my own personal chauffeur now. I no longer had the rental and still couldn't bring my house car to Bennett's house, so Henry had taken to picking me up and dropping me off places. I hated it, but I also could understand. Bennett's mother knew something was up with me, so we had to take caution now more than ever. Did you have a good day at work? Henry asked in greeting as I came out of coffee house after my shift. You really don't need to get out of the car to wait for me, I told him. Just stay inside in the air conditioning. Henry shuffled on his feet a little. It's okay, I don't mind waiting for you. I feel bad that you have to pick me up. It's probably not even in your job description. Maybe I should just buy a new car. I really don't mind, he insisted, opening the passenger door to the car for me. Besides, a lot of things I do for Bennett that aren't in my job description. Why do you do them? He gave me a sad smile. As a favor for my friend. A friend? What friend would ask Henry to do this for Bennett? Sebastian. You're a good friend then, I said as I slid into the car. Henry nodded a little before circling back to the driver's side. The ride to Bennett's was silent, which was a little weird since Henry was usually pretty talkative. When we arrived, he tried to get out to open the door for me, but I stopped him. I've got it. Have a good night, Henry. Thanks for driving me. No problem. See you tomorrow, he responded, the cheerful tone back in his voice. I entered the house, kicking off my shoes by the door. Pausing, I noticed there was a second pair of shoes on the mat, and they weren't Bennett's. They were men's shoes though, so it probably wasn't Bennett's mother. Just to be safe though, I tiptoed to the railing to peek over it. Down in the kitchen I saw a mop of chestnut hair and realized it was Sebastian. Hi Sebastian, I greeted him as I hopped down the steps into the main living area. There you are, come here, he said in response, gesturing toward the table. There's a house I put in an offer for. Curious, I went over to him and looked over his shoulder at his phone. He pulled up some pictures of a very modern-looking duplex and began swiping through the photos. In one of the bathrooms there was a full tub. Not a jacuzzi, but definitely big enough for a nice bath. Ooh, very elegant. Would you live here? Well, I wouldn't say no if the opportunity came about. Sebastian smiled pleasantly at me and held out his hand. Well, I'd be happy to do business with you. My mouth dropped. Wait. As in you'd rent half of this to me if your bid goes through? Yep. If I find you trustworthy enough. I'll have to do a credit check and a security check. Of course, you really don't have to do this, I said, flustered. I can find something on my own. Here's a tip. Take something when it's offered to you. Henley, when Sebastian had talked about doing this, I'd been all for it, but now that it was happening, I felt sheepish. But I really needed to get out of Bennett's place. I'd already been here long enough and my back couldn't take much longer on that couch. I'll take that tip then. Thank you, I mumbled. Did you ever figure out that thing you were worried about in Hawaii? Yeah, I said awkwardly. It seems I made a mistake. Sorry for being rude to you. It's fine. What did Bennett say? I scuffed my foot on the floor. Well, I actually haven't been able to talk to him since. He's been avoiding me, to my surprise. Sebastian laughed. You two really need to work on your communication. Yeah, I know. When I finally get a chance to see him, I'm going to explain everything about my brother to him. Your brother? Yeah, Brandon's a part of the reason I kind of freaked out on Bennett. Sebastian shifted in his seat, his brows furrowing as if he was in deep thought. How would your brother and Bennett be connected? Bennett was at the same pub my brother was at the night he got arrested, last February. They sort of resemble each other, so I thought maybe Bennett. Okay, that sounds bad, I added quickly. I'm not trying to say Bennett was involved, but I just wanted to make sure. What did your brother get arrested for? Motor vehicle theft and DUI. He stole the car and crashed it, apparently. But it's so unlike him. I mean, his car was at McAllen's. Why would he steal one? You know. Sebastian abruptly stood up, his shoulder knocking into my chin. I stumbled back a step into the kitchen counter, my eyes widening. He turned to me, placing his hands on my shoulders as if holding me in place. Don't mention that to Bennett. I stood still, unused to the hard edge in Sebastian's voice. I mean it, Henley. Why was he acting like this? Why couldn't I tell Bennett about it? Why was he trying to intimidate me? Was he trying to hide something? I grabbed his arms, attempting to push them away from me. He didn't budge. I strained a bit, my feet slipping on the kitchen tile. What are you? Made of marble. His jaw tensed. I could feel my heart beating against my chest. He definitely wasn't joking. What could make him suddenly change an attitude like this? Do you have something to do with my brother's accident? The question left my lips before I was ready to ask it. It was like a bucket of ice water was poured of Sebastian's head. He let me go, arms falling to his side, his mouth dropping open. Why are you acting like this? Is it because you might know something? Henley, he was there with someone. Could have it been you? No, Sebastian said. I wasn't there. I looked him in the eyes, challenging him. Why can't I mention this to Bennett? Do the two have something to do with each other? There's no way, Sebastian said. I can understand why you might think that, seeing as you think your brother was falsely accused and my family's full of lawyers, but Bennett and I couldn't lie to you like that. So please put that from your mind. Then why can't I say anything? The night your brother got into his accident is the same night Lee got into his accident. What I'm not aware of the full story. But I know that Bennett and Lee were at the McAllens that night, and that's the night Lee threw himself in front of a car. He suppresses that memory for a reason. I don't want you to bring it up. Please don't bring up McAllens. You can mention your brother, but don't mention the place or that night. Please. Bennett went through a really rough time and I don't want to see him go back to that state. Lee threw himself in front of a car. The world was muted for a moment, the horror of his situation dawning on me. Had Bennett witnessed it? Was that why he got migraines? Is that why he got scared when someone mentioned a car crash? Henley, I won't say anything, I promised him. My hands were shaking. I blinked rapidly, feeling my vision getting watery. I'd thought that Bennett could have been involved with my brother, when instead he'd been with his brother moments before he killed himself. I felt so guilty. I felt so bad for him. I couldn't imagine how I would be if Brandon did that. I stared at the floor, the first warm tear rolling down my cheek. Another one followed. Sebastian wrapped his arms around me. I'm sorry for acting like that, but Bennett's my best friend. I want to protect him in what way I can. It's okay. I understand. Please don't worry about this, either. Bennett doesn't particularly enjoy sympathy. If I can't help you with your situation with your brother, just let me know. I feel really bad. I said into his chest. You didn't know, he told me kindly. No one talks about it. No one expects you to know. So don't feel bad. And either way, you've done more good than bad. What do you mean? Bennett definitely smiles a lot more these days. That's thanks to you. Yeah, right, it is, Sebastian said, pulling back so he could face me. I felt my heart lift a little. Then I'm just returning the favor. Bennett has brought a lot of happiness into my life too. A grin broke across Sebastian's face, and he gently rubbed the top of my head. Glad to hear it. Now wipe those tears before he comes home and thinks I made you cry. No sooner than he said the words, we heard the sound of the front door closing. When I made a move to go to the staircase, Sebastian shook his head. Instead, he stood so he was blocking me. If it's his mother, stay still. I glanced up at the banister surrounding the bottom of the house. Bennett's head appeared, peeking down at us. I waved to him and Sebastian turned to look up at him as well. He frowned down at us. Wait, your face, Sebastian said and quickly used some of the fabric from the front of my shirt to wipe it. The bottom rose up to my belly button and I smacked his hands away so I could readjust it, giving him a dirty look. Don't give me that look. This is one of my expensive shirts, he said. How did you get in here? I changed the passcode, Bennett said to Sebastian as he came over to the kitchen area. Sebastian patted his buddy on the shoulder. You're a simple person. What's that mean? Never mind. I'm leaving. You two should talk. The corner of Bennett's mouth curved down impossible far as Sebastian took the stairs 3 at a time. How would he guess the passcode? It's the same digits as my PIN number. Does he know my PIN number? Yes, I know your PIN number, Sebastian called from the upstairs. See you two later. I hid a smile as Bennett scowled a bit. Why are you two always in suspicious positions when I come home? Bad timing, he grunted. How was work? I asked. Tiring. I think I'm going to head to bed at 6 o'clock. Bennett, I'm rather busy. I'll make it short then. I'm moving out. This caught his attention. He whipped around to face me, shock written across his face. What? Sebastian's buying a place. You're moving in with him. What? No. He's going to rent a place out to me. Why would you think that? Bennett visibly relaxed, but a frown was still plastered on his face. Why can't you just stay here? I've imposed enough. I really don't mind, he said immediately. Really? Because you never seem to be around anymore. I think it's because of me. He struggled for words to respond and I sighed. Listen, Bennett. About the thing in Hawaii. I know you've been avoiding me because you think it's your fault, but I want you to know that wasn't your fault at all. Something came up in my brother's case and I just wanted to get home. I'm sorry for snapping on you that night. He hunched his shoulders, crossing his arms over his chest. Why couldn't you just tell me that? Because I thought you could have been the real culprit. I've told you before I'm used to doing things alone. Well, you have me now, don't you? The familiar warm feeling spread across my chest. I actually think I felt butterflies. I did have Bennett. And maybe I was a little selfish and immature and maybe I didn't really deserve him, but I wanted him. And he seemed perfectly okay with taking me the way I was. Next time let me know so I don't misunderstand, he scolded me. I smiled, nodding my head. Okay, I will. So you really don't mind that I kissed you? I shook my head. Would you mind if I did it again? I shook my head. Leaning forward, I brought my face close to his. Take this as my apology. I'd barely brushed my lips against his before pulling back. Or at least, tried pulling back. He reached out and stopped me, giving me a disapproving look. That's it. Normally I'm not a kiss on the first date kind of girl. I breathed, trying not to focus on just how close his face was to me. But we've already been on a date. It takes 3 proper dates for me to give out a kiss. His hands dropped and I stepped away. Proper dates? As in without Sebastian? I grinned. Yeah, as in no Sebastian. I think I can manage that. Are you free tomorrow night? Eager, aren't you? When it comes to you, yes. I felt myself blush. You have no problem saying things like that, do you? I have no problem saying anything, he responded, shrugging. Yeah, that's true. Henley, are you really going to move out? I nodded. Yeah, why? You don't have to, he said, keeping his tone casual. I should get my own place though. Well, just think about it. You're more than welcome to stay. If it's because you're sleeping on the couch. I can clean up Lee's room. I watched his face as he said this. It stayed steady, but his eyes were focused on the lake. My voice died in my throat. I couldn't respond. I knew the weight of his words. He was willing to let me stay in his brother's old room. The same room he hadn't touched in months. The same room no one was allowed in. The only thing he had left. He was willing to give it to me. I didn't know what to say. Bennett's POV, click in my heart. Light flooded the inside of Lee's old room as I flipped the switch. My throat constricted at the sight of his abandoned bed. Nothing ever changed. Not in the room. Not saying Henley could use Lee's room was easy. Thinking about Henley using Lee's room was a little less easy. Being in Lee's room, it wasn't easy at all. I wanted to keep it only for him. Keep it so he knew he had a place to return to. Except I knew he wasn't coming back. My hand clenched the handle and I fought the urge to slam the door and pretend the room didn't exist as I had been for the past half year. Grow up, I scolded myself. Lee wouldn't want this. If I couldn't do this for myself, and if I couldn't do this for Henley, the least I could do it for was Lee. If Lee had been here, he would have offered up his bed the first night Henley had shown up. He wouldn't have forced her to sleep on that cramped couch. Only now was I realizing how awful the couch must have been for her. And I was only realizing it because I didn't want her to leave. Lee always told me I was ignorant. He was right. Steeling myself, I fully entered the room. I hated how it felt. Almost like when you walk into a cemetery and you hold your breath for reasons you can't understand. Henley could change that. She could bring life into the room that I let die. I just had to accept the fact that this wasn't Lee's room anymore. And that was hard. My hand traced the desk where Lee used to stay up all night, researching and planning for the hotel in Walaya. A fine layer of dust covered the tips of my fingers and I could see the trail wiped clean on the wood. There were scratches in the finish, probably made from Lee's pins. He liked the sharp ones. They lasted the longest, and with his workload, he needed something that wouldn't run out after going through dozens of documents. The stale scent felt smothering, so I walked over to the window to let some fresh air in. Lee's telescope stood pointed at the sky and I smiled, remembering the nights we stayed up, identifying constellations. He had stacks of books around the room. Some about constellations, some about myths and legends, some about physics. He never stopped reading. I stared at his bookcase, suddenly feeling like I was going to throw up. I realized I couldn't do this alone. It would have to wait until someone else was around to help me. If I were to go on like this, I'd drown in my thoughts and get nowhere. Holding my head, I exited the room, closing the door a little too roughly behind me. I didn't want to get sick. Not today. I had plans with Henley. I didn't want my messed up emotions to ruin it. It was still early in the morning, since I'd prepared to clean the room before Henley woke up, so I could get in a few more hours of sleep to fortify myself. "Are you okay?" I jerked back, turning my head to see a sleepy Henley standing on the stairs, wearing one of my long-sleeve shirts that were too big for her. Her eyes were squinted and it looked like she was struggling to stay awake. The feeling of unease was immediately washed away, replaced by one of fondness. She was extra adorable in the morning. "Did I wake you?" "No, I just heard something and came to investigate," she mumbled, covering her mouth as she yawned. "Everything's fine. Why don't you go back to sleep? I might as well try to stay awake. My back hurts." "I don't want to go back on that couch," as if to prove her point. She grimaced, placing a hand on her side and leaning over. I could only imagine. Even though she was small, the couch was smaller. There was no way she was getting a full night's rest on that. And how many nights had she been here for now? And all those times I didn't even think about how she slept. "You can sleep in my bed," I offered. She went stiff, her eyes locking onto mine. "I'll go rest on the couch," I clarified quickly. She quickly shook her head. "I'm fine. I insist the couch really isn't that bad. It's fine. Don't worry about me, Henley." Her lips snapped shut. "Okay." Feeling a little triumphant, I turned back down the hall, hearing her padding after me. I opened my bedroom door and motioned for her to enter. She seemed a little more awake now, but I could tell by the way she was walking she'd be able to quickly fall back asleep. She stood next to my bed awkwardly, watching me. "Get in," I said. She pressed her lips together, hesitating. "I wash the sheets frequently, if that's what you're worried about." She gave me one of her famous sarcastic looks, but the little blush on her cheeks made it less threatening. After a long second she slowly sat on the bed. Then she flopped down and sighed. "It's so comfortable, okay? Rest up. I'll wake you up in a few hours." I'd begin to walk away, but a noise stopped me. Glancing back, I saw her patting the bed, her face pushed into a pillow. "What?" I asked. She mumbled something into the pillow. "What, come here?" she said loudly, pulling her face up from the pillow. "It's your bed. And it's not like we're strangers." We kissed. "We can sleep together, can't we?" "Not in, that sense." "Well, actually in both senses." Her face morphed into one of complete horror. "Why did I just say that?" I laughed, covering my mouth too late to smother it. Her face flamed. "Never mind. Get out." I walked over to the other side of the bed, trying to keep my face even. It was cute how embarrassed she was. "It's my room, now I'm too shy." "Then just don't look at me," I responded, sitting on the edge of the bed. I waited to see what she would say. If she wanted me to leave, I would. But she didn't say anything. I pulled the rest of my body on top of the bed, above the comforter. In a quick motion she flipped onto her side, frowning at me. "You can get under the comforter. It'll be too cold with the air conditioner on." With her facing me, I suddenly lost my confidence. I swallowed lightly, hoping she wouldn't notice as I gently slid under the blanket. We watched each other the entire time and I wondered what she was thinking. I wondered if she knew what I was thinking. Something as innocent and common as this felt new and exciting, just because I was with Henley. I felt nervous, like when I had my very first kiss. She made me feel nervous. I wanted to know if she was nervous. When she suddenly moved closer to me, snuggling into my chest, I got my answer through the sound of her erratic heartbeat. Smiling, I cupped the back of her head, petting her hair until I fell into the best sleep I'd had in a long time. By the time I woke up again, it was around 10 in the morning. My phone was buzzing on the side table and Henley had flung one leg over me and her head was resting on my chest. Her hair tickled my chin with each rise and fall of my chest. I tried to carefully reach my phone without waking her. "Hello, where are you?" "Henry." "I'm home," I answered him quietly. "Are you on your way?" His voice sounded extra frantic today. "I'm not coming in today." There was a second of silence. "Why are you so quiet? Did you just wake up?" "It's 10 in the morning, Bennett." I glanced at the blonde sleeping on my chest. "I can't talk right now. You have to come in. Your mother is here today." My head fell to the side in annoyance. "I don't care. Tell her I'm sick." "You don't sound sick, Henry." "If you really have to know, I'm going on a date with Henley today." I couldn't help the tiny smidge of pride bleeding into my tone. "I'll tell her you're sick," Henry decided. "Leave the house at 11. She has a meeting so there won't be a chance of her looking at the cameras." "Thanks, Henry." "Good luck. I should be saying that to you." He hung up first and I scowled a bit. Then I noticed Henley peering up at me, a sly smile her face. "You sound excited for today." I could feel the blood rush to my face. She had been awake. "I'm not ashamed to admit hanging out with you is appealing to me." "Good. I just hope you still think that after today." "What do you mean?" "I've got a great idea for our date," she said playfully. When we pulled up to what looked to be an abandoned warehouse, I grew a little wary. Henley did live in a questionable part of town for a while. Who knows what ideas she could have gotten. "What's your favorite childhood activity?" she asked me as I cut the engine. I thought about it for a moment. Did solving math equations count as an activity? Sometimes Lee would play baseball with me. "Have you ever been go-karting?" My nerves began to twist and a feeling of dread snuck through me. I looked at the building again. Now I could make out that one side of the entrance was a checkered flag. Activities that could be dangerous were always ill-advised by my mother, I told Henley. Henley rolled her eyes. I think you mean anything fun was ill-advised by your mother. Come on, I promise it'll be fun. I unbuckled my seat, suddenly very aware that the shirt I was wearing cost several $100s. It hadn't occurred to me Henley would want to do something interactive. My perfectly straightened jeans and smudge-free shoes would feel out of place at a greasy track. In an attempt to make myself look more normal, I tried to put wrinkles into my shirt. Henley raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything as she took my hand and led me into the building. The air was chilly inside and smelled like motor oil and tires. I wrinkled my nose as Henley began to talk to the person working the counter. He gestured to a pair of computers and Henley told me to fill out the form. Once again, I felt nervous. Why did we have to fill out a waiver? You're not going to die, she commented, noticing my hesitation. I don't think I'm going to. Your face is whiter than the moon. The moon is actually gray, I informed her. She stared at me for a moment before shaking her head. Forget it. You'll be fine. Let's go watch the safety video. Pay close attention so you don't die. The safety video was approximately 5 minutes long and full of unprofessional actors. However, the standard practice to use a go-kart was simple. It was safer than I imagined it to be. After watching it, we were given what looked to be a sock and Henley told me to put it on my head since the helmets we'd be wearing were shared between the public. I wanted to leave after she told me that, but she forcefully shoved me to the track where I was handed a helmet and neck brace. Put the head sock on, she insisted, taking it from my hands and putting it on my head. I frowned at her and she burst out laughing. Haha, you look really different with the hat on. Here's the helmet. I took the helmet from her and put it on my head, allowing her to button the chin strap for me. No one else was on the tracks. She quickly pulled her helmet on, tucking her bangs away so they wouldn't be in her face. You look pretty good with a helmet, she said, grinning at me. Kind of badass. No one had described me as badass before. I kind of liked it. With renewed confidence, I climbed into the go-kart one of the workers had gestured to. Henley sat in the one behind me and the worker gave us the breakdown on how the gas and brakes worked. When the light in front of us hit green, I gently tapped the gas, shocked when I shot forward. I could hear Henley laughing from behind me as I gently exited the run lane. As soon as Henley was able to, she shot past me, flying down the track. I pressed the gas a little more, wanting to catch up to her. The air whipped in my face, causing my eyes to tear a little. At the first turn, I slammed on the brakes, taking it gently. Because I was so low to the ground, it felt like I was going faster than I actually was. My heart thudded in my chest and I followed Henley with my eyes as she skidded around the corners with ease. It didn't take long before she lapped me. She was flying through the course. I started taking the turns a little faster, pressing the gas all the way down and going so fast the cart began to shake. The more laps I completed, the more self-assured I became. Just as I thought I could catch up to her, she drew the checkered flag. I meekly finished my last 3 laps before pulling up behind her. My fastest run was 18 seconds. Yours was 28, she teased, turning back in her go-kart to face me. Are we going again? Do you want to? I nodded. This time I wasn't going to let her win. When the light turned green, she floored it out the gate. I immediately followed pursuit, right on her tail. My hands clenched the wheel tightly, but I wasn't going to let her win this race. I kept my gaze trained on her hair flying out behind her and soon enough, I managed to pass her on a corner. From there on out it was a toe-to-toe match. Every time I caught a glimpse of her face, her expression was different. She was laughing. She was determined. She was mad. I found myself laughing more than I had in a very long time. On the final lap, she managed to sneak by me on the last corner, winning her the race. As we climbed out of the go-kart, she took off her helmet, flipping her hair over her shoulder. Loser pays for dinner. I took off my own helmet and frowned. I'd almost beaten her. You can't make a deal after the fact. PFFTT. Look at your hair. I touched the top of my head, feeling my hair sticking in every direction. Turning from her, I smoothed it out. How unfair. Even after going 40 miles an hour, Her hair looked beautiful. "Did you have fun?" she asked as we headed back outside. The warm July air felt refreshing. I shook my arms, my muscles feeling stiff from yanking the wheel to the side so much. "It was enjoyable. I can't believe you've never been go-karting before." "I didn't do much as a child," I said, unlocking my BMW. Walking to the passenger side, I opened the door for her. Mostly it was learning about management and finances and following after Lee. I did track though, in high school. After I climbed into the driver's seat, she turned to me, seeming to comprehend something. "Track makes sense. You seem pretty athletic, but you're not very bulky." I was thinking soccer. "I'm rather muscular for my size," I defended. "All right, well, we'll put that to the test at our next stop." Once again, I felt a looming nervousness. "And what is that?" "Rock climbing. Have you done it before?" "I haven't. I thought it'd be fun for us to try since it's around here," she said happily, flexing the tiny muscles on her arm. "I hope I can lift myself up." I thought about my already aching arms and grimaced. But if that's what she wanted to do, I would do it. Turning the car on, I began to pull out of the parking lot, yanking too hard on the wheel and taking the turn too sharp. She raised an eyebrow. "I'm used to the go-kart handling," I mumbled. She grinned and opened her mouth to respond, only to be cut off by her cell phone ringing. "Oh, it's Ariana. 1 second." "Hello." I watched as the smile slid off her face. "How are you?" Her voice cracked, barely coming out in a whisper. "Where are you?" "What?" "No. Stay there." "I'm coming." "What happened?" I asked. This time she was whiter than the moon. My first thought was my mother, but there was no way she knew what we were up to. Henry wouldn't tattle on us. Henley held her cell phone tightly in her hand, staring down at her lap. "I need to go to coffee house." "Why? What happened?" She glanced at me, her eyes round. "It's my brother. He's out of jail. He's at coffee house with Ariana." "What the heck happened? How was he out? How did I not know before? Why didn't he contact me? What's going on?" Unable to answer, I remained quiet as I changed directions and we headed back into Lower Poughkeepsie. The whole time she tapped her fingers on her thigh, staring out the window. I wasn't sure what to do in this situation. I didn't know her brother. I didn't know what would come her. The minute I pulled into the parking lot, she tried to get out of the car, while the car was still going. "Henley," I scolded as she reached for the handle. "Wait until I park to get out." Not even a second after I shifted it into park, she unlocked the door and jumped out, nearly sprinting into the coffee shop. I sat in my car for a moment, considering the situation. Her brother, who had been in jail for the last couple months, had finally been released. This was their reunion. Maybe they wanted privacy. But at the same time, it was Henley's brother and Henley was my sort of girlfriend. Maybe she could use the support. Deciding on a bit of both, I waited in my car for a few more minutes. Then I climbed out, straightened my shirt, checked my reflection, and headed in. 4 heads snapped in my direction. Ariana, Henley, a guy I didn't know, and Sebastian. I locked eyes with the man I assumed to be Henley's brother. They shared the same deep blue eyes and nose, and when his eyes narrowed at me, it felt familiar. Henley gave me that expression often. What Henley didn't do, however, was lunge at me with the intent to kill. Henley's POV. In my head, I'd imagined my reunion with Brandon to be slightly teary and very heartwarming. Of course I should have known, since it was Brandon, it would be the opposite. "Brandon," I cried as he lunged at Bennett with outstretched hands. I was too far away to stop him, but Bennett quickly caught Brandon's arms, twisting the man holding them in place behind Brandon's back. For a moment I was too shocked by his reaction to move. Bennett hadn't seemed the type to know how to protect himself, but then I moved forward to grab Brandon's shoulders and pull him away from Bennett before he could do any real harm. "So you're the guy, huh?" Brandon said lowly, eyeing Bennett up and down slowly. Bennett looked understandably confused. "Sorry, Brandon, don't even start," I said warily. "No way. No guy is living with my little sister without my permission," Brandon said, cracking his knuckles intimidatingly. Sebastian snorted from behind us, earning him a dirty look from my brother. "And since when have you become surrounded by guys, Henley? Are you the main character of a novel?" Brandon demanded. I rolled my eyes. "It's not like that. I told you already. Bennett offered me a place to stay when attack on Henley's apartment happened. You should be thankful he took me in. He's suspicious. I can clear any background check and any security clearance with ease," Bennett stated confidently. Brandon stared at Bennett like he was an alien specimen. I grimaced a bit and patted Bennett on the shoulder. "See? He's perfectly normal. Kind of. Besides, if I wanted to do anything to your sister, I could have already," Bennett added casually, examining the back of his hand. "Why you whoa there," Ariana said, swinging an arm around my brother's shoulder to keep him still. "Calm down." Bennett's joking around. Probably. I wasn't sure either. Bennett wasn't the type to crack jokes, but by the way he was smiling smugly to himself, I wondered if he'd started to. Brandon pouted for a moment until I turned back to him. "What are you even doing here? How did you get out of jail?" "I'm on parole," he said, folding his arms across his chest as Ariana stepped away from him to resume her place at the counter by Sebastian. There were clearly defined muscles that hadn't been there before. Maybe working out had helped him pass the time. My new lawyer requested it based on the new evidence he presented, and the officials accepted it. I really don't think Richard was trying to get me out early at all. Who is the new lawyer? What new evidence? Why are you keeping me in the dark about everything? I demanded. Couldn't you have called me to let me know you were being released? His lips quirked up and he spread out his arms. I wanted it to be a surprise. So, surprise. I pressed my lips together thinly. I could have picked you up, at least. I had a ride, and also I'm an adult. I can do things by myself. Mom, did you forget you're my little sister? Wait, did you say new evidence? I said, his words finally registering in my brain. What's that? The video from McAllen's. You'll never believe it. I have no idea how Richard missed it. It really makes me suspicious of him. Brandon opened his mouth to continue but then closed it, glancing between Bennett and Sebastian. But let's discuss this later. Why? Since it's a private matter, I don't want to discuss it in front of strangers. Right. Sebastian and Bennett were right there. They didn't need to know about this. Fine, but you better tell me everything. I will. Sheesh. Just be happy your big bro is finally free, he replied, pulling me into a tight hug. I'll protect you from the hobos. I pushed against his chest and made a face. You. Yeah, right. What? I've been working out. Check out these guns. He popped up his arm, flexing his admittedly beefy biceps. You like that, Ariana? Ariana giggled and I rolled my eyes. Right? I forgot I'd have to deal with Brandon flirting with Ariana every 5 seconds. My gaze fell upon Sebastian, who was smiling tightly. Have you two been introduced? I asked, wondering if poor Ariana was about to find herself in the middle of a love triangle. Briefly, Brandon said, This is Sebastian. He owns a bunch of properties, so he's going to cut us a deal on a place to live around here, I informed my brother, hoping to get Sebastian on Brandon's good side. If they became friends, it would be less likely for a love triangle to form. Brandon cocked his head to the side. Really? Why? I'm just helping out a friend, Sebastian said politely. Or is there more to it? I groaned. Oh my God, Brandon. Shut up. He's just a friend. Sebastian's really nice, Ariana cut in cheerfully. He looks a little intimidating, but I think it's just because he dresses nicely all the time. So you don't have to worry about him and you can trust him, she smiled at Sebastian, whose cheeks had flushed slightly. Brandon frowned at Sebastian for a moment, then he looked over himself, picking at the thin black shirt he was wearing. I gasped. Oh no. I don't have any of your clothes. They were stolen by the hobos. How hadn't I thought about that? I should have been more prepared and bought clothing to replace it. It's okay, I probably wouldn't have fit in them anyway, so at least they got donated in some weird way. I saved up a little money by working in the jail, Brandon said, waving me off. Don't worry about it. You've already had so much to worry about with me gone. You're my brother, I said, frowning. I have to worry about you. We can go shopping when I get out of work tomorrow. I have money you can have too. Brandon shook his head. I'm not taking your money. Ariana said she'd take me around tomorrow morning to put in job applications. Anyway, my schedule is full. I can help you find a job, if you'd like. Bennett spoke up. No thanks, Brandon said immediately. If I get money from you, would I have to date you too? My mouth fell open and my cheeks grew hot. Brandon, anyway, I can find my own job. I don't need handouts, he said, holding his chin high. You just got out of jail. I don't think you can be picky. More reason for me to do this on my own. You don't have to be a jerk about it. Brandon and I glared at each other until Bennett spoke again, making us break away to face him. He stuck his hands into his pockets and shrugged. It was just an offer. It will still stand if you can't find anything. Sure, Brandon said. Thanks, he gritted out after I kicked him in the shin to give him a hint. He tried to kick me back and I moved the leg he was aiming for and managed to kick him again by swinging it out. You two sure are siblings, Sebastian mused, a smirk on his face. Unfortunately, I sighed. Brandon wrapped his arm around my neck and gave me an emoji. AWW, she loves her big bro. At one point I would have been able to break free from him, but that was before he went to prison and became Bisiposaurus. I think I liked you better when you were in jail. Ariana burst out laughing and Brandon finally released me, attempting to snatch her into his death grasp. Letting out a little scream, she ducked under the counter to get to the safety of the other side. You can't come back here. Employees only. I could meet you in the back room, Brandon said with a wink. I pretended to throw up. Sebastian walked over to me as Ariana began to throw coffee beans at my brother. I grimaced at him, feeling like I should apologize. Sorry about him. You two seem to get along well. Really? It seems that way to you. Well, you look like you're having fun, brushing my hair behind my ear. I grinned a little bit. Yeah. It's nice to have him back, even if he's annoying. How long have you been here, anyway? Did you come here for something? Can I come to a coffee shop for coffee? My neck became warm. Somehow Sebastian always managed to make me feel embarrassed. Haha. Yeah. I didn't mean for that to come out that way. You're more than welcome here. Even if it's embarrassing to be caught wearing the uniform. His eyes crinkled as he smiled. I was in the area so I dropped by to see you and Ariana. And I think the uniform is cute. You two look cute in it. You knew Henley was out with me, so you didn't come here to see her, Bennett interjected, suddenly appearing by my side. A bit too close. His shoulder pressed against mine. Also, you're not allowed to see her in her uniform anymore. Sebastian covered his mouth, but couldn't hide the laugh he emitted. I gave him a side look of disbelief. In response, he crossed his arms over his chest, like he was actually trying to portray the child he was coming off as. He came by to see Ariana, he mumbled, putting up his hands. Sebastian fake surrendered. You got me. But you can't stop me from visiting Henley at work no matter how jealous you get. I'm not jealous, Bennett muttered. Then he seemed to notice how close to me he'd gotten and took a step away. It was kind of cute. Kind of. And in some cliché way, I like to think Bennett could feel jealous over Sebastian like that. Too bad he was too oblivious to realize Sebastian's interests lay elsewhere. So you think Ariana is cute in her uniform? I started to say, only to be interrupted by a loud crash as Brandon sent one of the jars of coffee beans flying off the counter and skidding all over the floor. Ariana covered her ears and winced, opening one eye slowly to take in the destruction. Whistling to himself, my brother feigned innocence as I glowered at him. Those two were always trouble when they were near each other. I think we should take this somewhere else, I said. Why are you giving me that look? It was her, was not, Ariana said quickly. We should leave, I repeated. Then I hesitated. Where were we going to go? I didn't have a place. I only had Bennett's place. Could we go there? He didn't like people in his house though. And my brother was a force of nature that not many could handle. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Brandon stepped on coffee beans, not even trying to avoid him, as he made his way over to me. Where do you expect me to go? I glanced at Bennett, unsure of what to say. Could I invite Brandon over? Was it pushing it? Would Bennett be comfortable? Oh, Brandon, you can stay with me, Ariana offered, gathering the broom and dustpan to clean up the mess. If you want. I know Bennett likes his space at his house. Why, you could stay with me, Sebastian said loudly, and we all turned to give him a funny look. Maybe because he never stuttered. Ever. Or maybe because he didn't even know Brandon. So why was he offering? His face flushed red and his mouth hung open, as if he was surprised he even said that. I felt the need to pinch his cheeks. He was so cute. And he obviously didn't want Ariana to have Brandon over. Oh, I'd rather stay with Ariana, but thanks. Brandon gave me a confused look and I shrugged, trying to hide my smile. He could stay at my house. If you wanted that, Bennett said quietly. My head whipped toward him. Was he serious? Bennett, who never let anyone besides his mother and Sebastian in his house, was going to let a complete stranger in? For me. I wasn't sure whether to cry or kiss him. It meant a lot to me, but I wasn't sure if I liked putting that kind of pressure on him. He shouldn't have to feel the need to leave his comfort zone just to please me. Ah, no. He's fine with Ariana. I'm fine with it too. I'll be able to see him whenever. Thanks, though. He visibly relaxed. Let me know if you change your mind. You don't have to do that for us. We'll be getting our own place soon, I told him. Which was the wrong thing to say. His face fell, suddenly resembling a downhearted puppy. Oh, let's not worry about that right now, I said. I'm going to hang out here with my brother until Ariana's shift ends to try and keep him from destroying the place. You can head out, if you want. Bennett checked his watch and then promptly sat down at one of the tables. Our date is still going on. It would be rude of me to leave. You might get bored. I have work I can do, he responded, pulling out his cell phone. Hang out with your brother. It's been a while. I smiled at him. That's not really a date. It makes me happy to see you happy, and isn't happiness what dates are all about? It's kind of weird when you say cheesy things. Provolone, I pointed my finger at him. And you're making jokes? He's becoming real smooth, isn't he? Sebastian commented, putting his hands on Bennett's shoulders. It's weird to me too. Bennett shrugged Sebastian's grip off him, keeping his eyes glued to his cell screen. I've always been funny. Sebastian and I exchanged sarcastic looks and I grinned. Bennett sure was a charmer. Oh, Henley, can I ask you something? Sebastian asked. In private, Bennett's chin turned up and he gave us a suspicious glance, but I still followed Sebastian away until we were out of earshot of everyone. What's up? Was he about to confess his love for Ariana to me? Maybe he was hoping I could play Cupid. I'd love to set her up with him. He was much better for her than my brother. Before I could get too deep into my fantasies, he cleared his throat. What was your old lawyer's full name? Richard. What? Not what I was expecting. Richard DePillo. Why? Do you know him? Sebastian's eyebrows hooded, as if he was in deep thought. Yes, I do. How did you afford him though? What do you mean? He was the best deal around for lawyers. But then again, he turned out pretty crappy. You get what you pay for, I guess. He's one of the best lawyers I know. I raised an eyebrow. Really? Didn't seem like it. Why would he take on your brother's case? He muttered. Now it sounded like Sebastian was talking more to himself than me. A strange cold feeling washed over me and I felt nervous. Why was he asking about Richard? Did Sebastian know something? Perhaps the other cases he had caused him to lose focus on your brother's case. He spoke before I could say anything. It's weird for him to not win his case. The awkward feeling disappeared and I pursed my lips. That's still not an excuse. Sorry if he's your friend, but I think he's pretty shady. A lot of lawyers are, Sebastian said, a sympathetic smile on his face. It quickly fell as he turned away from me. And a lot of people are. Bennett's POV, MR. Calloway. My eyes snapped to Henry, who was standing in front of my desk, holding a manila folder in his hands. I hadn't heard him walk in. Straightening in my seat, I cleared my throat. "What are you feeling, okay? You didn't answer when I knocked, so I came in." Sighing, I rubbed a hand across my forehead. He probably thought I'd fallen asleep again. I'm thinking, I'll just leave this here then. It's just the information regarding the licenses for the hotel in Walaya. We've hired a webmaster for the creation of the website, thank you. He nodded. Then, I'll be going. Before he could walk out the door, I spoke up. Can I ask you a question? Not as your boss, but as a friend. His expression brightened. Of course. Let's say you know this girl and for some reason she is staying with you and it's been going great, but something came up where she wants to move out, but you don't want her to leave. How do you get her to stay? Henry blinked at me. Are you asking me about Henley? I pressed my lips together, trying my best not to give him a sour look. Why did he have to be so keen? Couldn't he pretend like he didn't know? Yes, I said after a moment. No use trying to lie to him. Well, you can't make her do what you want, he told me. Henley is her own person. She has the right to decide what she wants to do, but I want her to stay. Have you tried asking her? Yes, but she said she didn't want to put that kind of pressure on me. I don't think she wants to stay. I wondered if it was something I'd done. Was sleeping in the same bed too uncomfortable for her? Just being in my house? Was it because I offered to clean my brother's room? Did she think I felt forced to do that and not because I wanted to? Henry smiled softly. Just because she's moving out doesn't mean she wants to cut contact with you. Her brother just got out of jail. It makes sense for her to want to get a place with him, that he could move into. I mumbled. Then Henley would feel even worse for imposing on you. She's very kind. She grew up without handouts. Taking them is likely to be very hard for her. It was bad of me, but I kind of wished Henley's brother hadn't been released from jail. Then there would be no issue. She would stay. That is, until Sebastian readied the apartment for her. Did Sebastian even care how I felt? Realizing how immature I was being, I groaned and dropped my head on my desk. What was happening to me? Henry patted my shoulder. There. Love makes you do crazy things. My head shot back up. Love? He gave me an innocent look. Yes, love. Well, I stuttered, trailing off, feeling the heat begin to rise on my cheeks. What it's not. I don't. He tilted his head to the side, tapping his fingers on his arm. Well, at least I love Henley. I paused. What? Henry nodded. I love her a lot. Since when? I demanded. Henry loved Henley. When had that happened? Had they even been around each other enough? I never thought Henry would be the type to go after someone I was after. Do you think she would choose you? I've loved her for longer than you have. The words slipped out of my mouth and Henry brought his hands to his heart. His face scrunched up in delight. AWW. I knew it. You did that on purpose, I accused, my heart suddenly racing. He gave a slight shrug of his shoulders, pushing up his glasses. I didn't think you were aware enough to come to that conclusion by yourself. I just helped you along. My stomach tingled and I reached for the nearest thing to me, a box of tissues, and threw it at him. Get out. I'm so happy for you, Bennett. It's Mr. Calloway. Right. Yes, Mr. Calloway, he responded, dodging all the other items I was hurling at him. I'll be able to be your best man. I stood up from my desk, just as Henry slammed the office door shut. My head felt light and I gripped the edges of my desk, waiting for the dizziness to wear off. Slowly, I sat back down, taking a huge breath of air. Love? Had I really just said that? I loved Henley. A mental picture of her popped into my mind, all determined blue eyes and soft skin and pretty hair. My heart skipped a beat and I clutched at it. Was this what all this was about? Love? It made sense. I loved Henley. I wasn't prepared for this. When was the last time I had a proper relationship? Henley and I didn't even have a proper relationship. And yet I'd gone and fallen head over heels for her. She might not even feel the same way. I ran my hands through my hair, mussing it up. What am I supposed to do? I was about to ask you that myself. I jumped, unaware that someone had entered the room. My mother frowned at me, a familiar look of disappointment on her face. Is that girl still staying at your place? That's none of your business, I snapped. This was not the right time for this conversation. Couldn't she say something without making it an attack? You changed your locks. Thanks for letting me know you tried to enter my home while I wasn't around. That's illegal. In case you're unaware, her lips curved further down than they already were. As always, she looked ready to strike out at any second. I'm your mother, and that's my house. Recently I feel you've begun to disregard me. She spoke quietly. The quieter her voice grew, the more dangerous. I closed my eyes, trying to calm down. She hadn't even started yet. I couldn't let her rile me up. I'm sorry. I've been busy with the hotel in Wailea and the other work, and I'm sure hanging around with that coffee shop worker. I told you Bennett she lied to you. She just wants your money. I know everything about her now. She lives alone. Makes minimum wage. She doesn't even attend college. She's not suitable for you. I tensed. My hands formed fists, my fingernails biting into my palms. She didn't know anything about Henley. She only knew whatever facts someone had scrounged up for her. I wouldn't have put it past her to tail Henley around. This is none of your business. It is my business. It's about my business. I gave you time, Bennett. I made you a deal. That time and that deal are almost up. Are you bringing me that girl? I say no, my mother said coolly, examining the tips of her blood-red nails. If you picked up any girl in this hotel right now, I'm sure she'd be a better match for you than the coffee girl. Her name is Henley, I gritted out. I don't care what her name is. Finish up whatever you two have and leave her. I'll know if you don't. Are you listening to yourself? I shouted. This is my life, not yours. Didn't you learn from Lee how psycho you make people? Do you really want to go through that again? Her eyes narrowed into slits and her lips snarled. How dare you mention Lee? I knew I shouldn't argue back at her. I knew I should take it in stride like I always did. But I was pissed. Every fiber of my being shook in anger. I wouldn't let her speak of Henley like that. You're allowed to, but I'm not. We both know what happened to him is your fault. Bennett James, get out of my office. You don't tell me what to do. I glared at her. Get out. My mother stood rigid, her shoulders heaving, not moving a step. I felt like I was going crazy. I'd never been this mad before. My pulse felt like it had never settled and my vision was getting blurry. There was no way I was settling this in a mature manner right now. If I stayed, I'd only say worse things. I had to get out of the office and away from my mother. Standing up from my desk, I snatched my keys off the holder and did my best to calmly walk to the door. If you speak to me like this again, I won't let it go, my mother said as I passed her. I didn't even try to keep myself from slamming doors as I exited. Henry was waiting outside, his face pale. I tossed him my keys. Please drive me home, of course, he said immediately, easily catching my keys. Henry didn't say a word the whole drive to my place. I appreciated it. I'd only calmed down slightly and reliving it wouldn't help at the moment. Usually I could take whatever my mother said, I was used to it. But when it came to Henley there was no way I could let it slide. I clenched my jaw. It was amazing what greed could do to some people. Call me when you're ready, Henry said as I climbed out of the car. Thank you, I answered. It was just after 7. Henley would be home from work already. After typing in the passcode, I pulled open the door. The scent of something burning met my nose immediately. Some of the anger I felt dissipated, replaced with worry. I didn't bother to kick off my shoes as I hurried down the steps into living room. Henley stood on the platform of the kitchen, looking embarrassed and guilty. Sorry. I thought I'd surprise you with dinner and I accidentally burned it and didn't have the chance to air it out. I knew her sentence was cut short as I pulled her into my arms, wrapping them around her tightly, pressing her face against my chest. She struggled to reposition herself so she could breathe. Bennett, I held her tighter. Just let me hug you for a moment. Slowly she snaked her arms around my shoulders, hugging me back and not saying a word. I breathed her scent in coffee, after working the day at the shop. It was an amazing smell. I love the smell of coffee forever now. The steak is still burning. I immediately released her, wiping all expression off my face. She held up her finger signaling for me to wait a moment and then rushed back to the stovetop where a cloud of smoke was forming. Afraid my smoke alarm would go off, I quickly went to open some of the windows to air it out. Sorry. They're done now. But they probably won't taste good, she added in a mutter as she placed the black specimens onto the plates she laid out. I'm sure it'll be fine, but I really wasn't sure. She pointed to a pot on the stove. There's mashed potatoes. Those look all right. Everyone loves potatoes, I snorted, covering my mouth a second too late. Henley gave me a dirty look and I laughed again. I tried to do something nice for you and you laugh at me. Shaking my head, I tried to control my smile. I appreciate this, Henley. Really? She crossed her arms, as if she thought I was being sarcastic. I stared at her, amazed at how much better I felt already. It was a weird feeling knowing that by just seeing someone it could ease your worries. I would never leave Henley because of my mother. My mother could threaten me any way she wanted to. It was a battle I was willing to fight. Henley must have sensed something in my expression because she softened her look. What's up? Did something happen? Yes, but I'm fine now. You might be fine until you eat the steak. Will you continue to live here? My question caught her off guard. I closed the distance between us again. She tried to step back, bumping into the counter. Bennett, will you? I repeated. She swallowed, her eyes scanning mine. I kissed her, pressing my body into hers, holding her in place so she couldn't move away. I didn't want her to move away. I pulled back, taking in her flushed cheeks. That's effective, she admitted. Dopamine tends to be. What? No, never mind. I don't want to know the connection. But you know I can't stay, Bennett, she sighed. Brandon can't stay with Ariana forever. There's a reason why I chose to stay with you and not with her. The landlord is strict about the amount of people in her apartment. Your brother can stay here as well. I don't think he'd be comfortable. I pursed my lips. He could get used to it. He'd gotten used to jail, hadn't he? Surely this was better than jail. Certainly more clean. Henley stood on her tiptoes and hugged me, resting her chin on my shoulder. You really want me to stay? I nodded firmly. You know, I kind of want to stay too. She did. Then what was the problem? I can clean up Lee's room. I'll do it today, I told her. She shook her head. No, Bennett. I want to stay, but I can't. I need my own place. Why? I don't feel comfortable intruding in your space. It's not like when I move out I won't be coming back here. I'll still visit. I'll even stay over. But my brother and I need our own place, and Sebastian is already buying a property to help us. I'm not going to tell him never mind. Sebastian, I growled. Henley laughed, nudging me in the side with her elbow. Come on. Let's eat. Stop worrying about me moving out. Easier said than done. I was dreading the day I'd be alone again. Maybe that was what I was most afraid of. I decided to keep that to myself. There was still some time. Maybe I could convince her some other way later. We sat down at the dining table with our meals. The steak looked terrifying. I made sure to bring out the A1 sauce. The rest of it looked edible. Henley looked sheepish as she prodded at the meat. It's not awful, she said as she tried a bite, and then continued to chew it for the next few moments. On second thought, if you don't want to die, you probably shouldn't eat it. I bravely put a forkful into my mouth. Henley's eyes widened. I somehow managed to swallow. Not bad. Sorry, she apologized. I should have just ordered something. I'm fine with this. Next time it'll be better. I promise I'll practice. Next time. I wanted to make sure there would be a next time. Henley deserved to know if my mother was planning something. Are you scared of my mother? I asked. She scrunched up her nose. No, but she's not exactly pleasant. No offense. She knows about you and isn't happy. She might try something. Henley raised her eyebrows. Like what? Shipping me to another country. Like in all those TV shows. Perhaps, she laughed. It wouldn't work. If she wants to try something, she can. You can't take anything away from someone who doesn't have anything. Don't worry about me, Bennett. I'll be fine. You have me, I said. I didn't like to hear her say she didn't have anything. I'd give her everything if I could. You're right, she agreed. That's all I need. If your mother wants to try anything, let her. I'm ready, I nodded. I trusted Henley. My mother wouldn't be able to separate us. There was no way. Henley's POV. The house is ready for you to move into, were Sebastian's cheerful words as he arrived at Bennett's house on Saturday afternoon. I checked the date on my phone. It was only August 1st. Really? Already? Here. I told them it was urgent. Everything checked out okay, he told me, sliding around me to enter the house. And it's faster when you pay cash up front. Is Bennett? I shook my head. No, he went out somewhere with Henry this morning. Well, it's best that he isn't here for this. Haha. Yeah, I rubbed the back of my neck, feeling slightly guilty. Bennett really didn't want me to move out and it felt kind of wrong planning it behind his back, but he knew it was coming. If he was here he could probably guilt me into staying. I wasn't sure if I was strong enough to turn him down. But I did know that Brandon and I needed our own space. We're here too, another voice chirped and I looked out the door to see Ariana rushing up the steps with my brother in tow. Hi, I greeted them, stepping aside so they could enter. Ariana stepped inside and her mouth dropped open. Wow, this place is nice. The ceiling is so high. Wait until you see the living room. Is it okay that we're here without Bennett? She asked as she kicked off her shoes and placed them on the doormat. I already asked if it was okay that you guys came over. It's fine, as long as we don't ruin his couch, I said, trying not to grin. My brother tried walking down the hall toward Lee's bedroom and I grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the stairs that led down to the kitchen. This way, Brandon. But I want to check the place out. Maybe when Bennett's here. Brandon pouted, but still followed the rest of us downstairs. Ariana ran to the glass wall, her mouth open in awe, exclaiming how beautiful it was. I smiled as I realized I probably had the same reaction and Bennett had witnessed it just like this. It was actually a little embarrassing to think about. Sebastian settled at the kitchen table, opening the briefcase he was holding and pulling out some papers and a tablet. I have some pictures of the house here if you guys want to come look at it. Do you want something to drink? I asked him as I pulled some paper cups out of the cabinet. Sebastian raised an eyebrow at me. Where did you find those? The cups. I bought them at the store. Bennett had the same reaction. I sighed. What's wrong with paper cups? Better than plastic ones? Sebastian shook his head, lips curving up. Nothing. I'll have some water. After getting the drinks, I sat down at the table next to Brandon and Sebastian pushed the tablet to me, opening the camera roll. There are 2 houses. One is in Poughkeepsie and the other is in Arlington. You can choose from the better of the 2. The first photos are of the one in Poughkeepsie. I'll probably stick to Poughkeepsie since it's closer to my jobs, I told him, swiping through the photos. The house was gorgeous. It wasn't even comparable to my apartment. Everything looked brand new, from the paint on the walls, to the tiles in the kitchen, to the wooden flooring in the 2 bedrooms. The ceilings were high and the style of the house was modern with sleek countertops and a beautiful shower and bathtub. I felt my mouth go dry, because if this wasn't Sebastian offering it to me, there was no way I'd be able to afford it. It would easily go for at least $1,300 a month excluding utilities. And even though it was a friend offering it to me, I was still afraid it might be too expensive. So how much is it? I asked as Brandon stole the iPad from me and started flipping through the photos again. How much can you afford? Suddenly my palms felt sweaty. It was a good question. The contract was over between Bennett and I, so the money he'd originally offered wasn't going to come my way. I still had all of the first 10 grand saved, and if I worked my normal hours between both jobs, I could definitely afford a little over $1,000. But I didn't want to offer something that was too low. I bit my bottom lip, unable to meet Sebastian's gaze. If you can afford $800 and the heat and electric bill, that is acceptable to me, he offered when I didn't answer. The bathroom is kind of small, my brother said bluntly before I could speak. And how small was it in prison? Sebastian returned without missing a beat. My jaw dropped. Did Sebastian just talk back? Even Ariana paused in her inspection of Bennett's house to come over to the table to see what was up. My brother narrowed his eyes at the other man. Nice one. Sebastian kept his face cool, but the twitching of his lip told me that he was impressed with himself. It doesn't matter if the bathroom is small, it's a place to live, I said to my brother, not wanting the awkwardness to last. Brandon thinned his lips, tipping his chair back onto its back legs. We shouldn't settle for something though. I'm out, and once I get a job we'll have more money. Sebastian bought a house to help us out. We are taking his offer. Sebastian smiled meekly as my brother scowled and turned his head to the side. For some reason, he didn't seem to like Sebastian. He refused to look him in the eye or even speak directly to him. Maybe it was because he thought Sebastian was pitying us. Or maybe it was because Ariana had just chosen the seat next to Sebastian instead of him. Well, you can move in any time, Sebastian said, pulling a set of keys out of his pocket and sliding them over to me. Huh? You're giving me keys already? Shouldn't I pay you first, last, and security? I know where to find you, he said with a smile. Take your time. I'm not in a rush. I leaned over in my chair to give him a tight hug. I don't know how to thank you for this, he chuckled, patting my back. Good people deserve good things to happen to them. I pulled back, smiling sheepishly. You're embarrassing me now. Can I have a house too? Ariana asked, elbowing Sebastian in the side. Would you be my Oprah? Sebastian turned to face her. Depends on what you have to offer me. Ariana stuck her tongue through her teeth and I stared at Sebastian. What was this? Now he was making suggestive remarks. Or was I reading into it? I glanced at my brother, who wrinkled his nose, as if smelling something disgusting. I could almost feel the question marks in my eyes. Ariana had really gotten herself stuck in the middle of something here. And if Sebastian's actions were anything to judge by, he wasn't going to let my brother easily rekindle what he had with Ariana. My bet's on Sebastian, I said. Ariana tilted her head to the side curiously, and my brother clapped the back of my head. Before any argument could start, I faintly heard the beeping of the front door alarm as someone began typing the code in. Sebastian and I exchanged glances and I felt a cold chill. Bennett wasn't supposed to be home yet. I stood up from the table and took off for the stairs, hoping to intercept Mrs. Calloway before she noticed Ariana and my brother. As I did so, Sebastian ushered Ariana and Brandon to move to the side of the living room that couldn't be seen from the stairwell. My heart lodged itself in my throat as I took the stairs 2 at a time, somehow making it to the top one before the door opened. I clutched the railing, my tendons as visible as my nervousness. I had to try and keep my cool. Mrs. Calloway stepped through the door, an unpleasant expression on her face. Immediately her gaze slid to me, and for a second, I swear she smirked. Did you change the passcode, or was it some attempt by my son to keep me out of his house? Hello, Mrs. Calloway. I greeted her, trying to keep my tone balanced, even though I was recoiling at the sight of her. Once again you're here without my son present, she said. Aren't you doing the same? I grimaced inwardly, so much for keeping my cool. Her eyes sharpened. I am not here to see him. I am here to see you, me, as you seem much more aware than my son. I figured it was easiest to come to you instead of try and convince him what a mistake pursuing your relationship is. Oh God. This was it. This was the most cliched moment of my life. I didn't even know how to respond. My life was a full-out drama at this point. Bennett's warning hadn't come a moment too soon. I had to steel myself. Shall we talk? She asked, stalking forward and gesturing down to the living room. I quickly put out my arms, blocking the stairway. We can talk right here. A sneer passed over her face, but she quickly schooled her features. I will overlook you acting like this is your house for the moment. I will make it straight and simple. Bennett cannot date you. You will hinder his life. Well, duh. She opened her mouth to continue and then paused, lips snapping shut. Clearly she didn't expect my response. I know you creepily searched my background, and by now you probably know I'm pretty poor and have no business education. But guess what? I also know that, I told her. So trying to fend me off like this won't work. You'll have to think of something better. Her nostrils flared. If you're aware, then leave him. Bennett is going to be the CEO. He needs someone who can support him, someone who knows the inside and out of the business world. Someone who makes $10,000 annually could never understand. Calling me poor won't insult me. Trust me, your son got me used to that, I said, shaking my head asking allowance, and I bet you got used to having him solving all your problems for you, she answered snidely. Don't think I don't know about you living here. Does he give you? And I bristled. She really did know how to make someone angry. I don't need Bennett to be able to manage my problems. Then prove it to me and leave him. Pass. Your age shows through your immaturity, she said sharply. Although I appeared calm, I was about 3 seconds from passing out. I could feel my pulse in every inch of my body. Why are you even doing this? It's not like we're engaged. There's still a chance we'll break up. Her lips twisted and she let out a scoff. Poor Bennett. He fell for a girl who doesn't even care for him half the amount he does for her. But as I've said before, I'm coming to you because Bennett is too blinded by his feelings to realize there would be no use in marrying you. What did she mean by that? Bennett and I cared for each other the same amount. Did she honestly think he was considering marrying me? There was no way we were at that stage. He needs someone who was raised properly. He needs someone with the right background, someone who will help to build the Calloway name. There are lines of high-class women wanting to meet with Bennett. What could you possibly offer him that no other woman would have? My beautiful face and charming personality, I deadpanned. And sorry, but you're not looking for a marriage. You're looking for a merger. Her fists clenched tightly at her side. I took careful breaths to not give myself away. Don't think speaking to you is the only way I could keep you away from Bennett, Mrs. Calloway said softly, the daggers in her undertone undeniable. Don't think words will scare me, I responded bravely. Also, if you try to send me to another country, I'll just enjoy my vacation and come back. If you make me lose my job, hello there, Sugar Daddy Bennett. If you call me every day on my cell phone to harass me, well, okay then, Drake. Oh, man. I was going to puke. I was so going to puke. Did I look as sick as I felt? It wouldn't be too intimidating if I did. I felt the sweat on my brow. There was no way I could keep this charade up much longer. But maybe I didn't have to. Mrs. Calloway drew herself to her full height, ready to go off, but she didn't say one word. She scowled at me and was probably cursing me in every direction in her head, but she did nothing. Why don't you let Bennett live his life? You already ruined one son's life. Can you really do the same to the other? I saw the snap in her and she rushed forward, arm lifted. I raised my hands to cover my face, shying away from the assault that never came. Instead, when I opened my eyes, I found her frozen, eyes trained on something downstairs. Following her gaze, I saw my brother rushing up the stairs to me. Mrs. Calloway immediately fell back, her eyes trained on my brother's face. Brandon stepped in front of me. Who are you? Mrs. Calloway slowly backed up, looking between my brother and myself. Then she abruptly turned on her heel and marched out the front door, slamming it loudly in her wake. I stared at the door, my eyes wide. What was that? Who is that? Why was she talking to you like that? Brandon asked, his voice filled with fury. How dare she? It's okay, I interjected. Why had she left like that? Why did she look so shocked by Brandon? It didn't make sense. Unless she thought I was having some sort of booty call while Bennett wasn't around. I shuddered at the thought. Maybe that idea was enough to scare her away though. I'd leave if I were her, too. Sebastian appeared next to me with Ariana behind him. Did you see that? I asked him. Yes, Sebastian said, his brows furrowed. Are you sure you don't know that woman? I asked Brandon. He shook his head. I've never seen her before. Why did she look so scared of you? I wondered out loud. Brandon flexed his muscles. I did work out a lot while in jail. Maybe the old hag was scared off by my biceps. Ariana snorted and I rolled my eyes, feeling the tension in the room break. I highly doubted it was my brother's muscles that had scared her off. But what had? Because whatever it was effective and I could use against her. I just had to figure out what it was. Bennett's POV. Bennett, your mother is calling, Henry said, looking at the caller ID on the touch screen as the sound of his ringtone came through the speakers. Should I answer? I shrugged. We were on our way back from a board meeting, so she was probably calling to check up on things. Just pretend I'm not with you. Henry hit the answer button on his steering wheel. Henry speaking. Where's Bennett? Henry and I exchanged surprised glances at the shrillness of her voice. It was the tone of one pissed-off mother. I shook my head furiously as Henry's eyes widened in fear. He's not with me, he squeaked out. Find him, she ordered in a shaky voice. Find him and bring him to me. Now. And in the meantime, head to his house and drag out that tramp that lies there. Hey, Henry started to protest. I reached over to the steering wheel and slammed the end button multiple times, causing Henry to lose control of the car momentarily. Bring me to my house, I said, my voice calmer than I felt. Nodding, Henry quickly pulled an illegal U-turn, heading back the way we came. I dug my phone out of my pocket, scrambling to type in my mother's number, messing up in my haste. What had she done to Henley? How dare she call Henley a tramp? Bennett, she barked, answering the first millisecond of the first ring. Stay out of my house, I snapped. Don't see that girl again. This is no longer a warning. Get rid of her today or face the consequences. You can't be with her. No, I could almost feel her anger radiating through the phone. I'm not playing your games anymore. End this futile relationship. Now. I will do everything in my power to keep you apart. You can't see her again. Don't even go back to your house. Henry will pack her bags. She was borderline psychotic. What made her go so crazy? What exactly had happened? Maybe Henley was better at handling my mother than I thought. Whatever it was clear Henley had won this round. She won't be leaving, I said simply. Don't test me. I will ship you across the world. I'll take her with me. Bennett, if you enter my house without permission again, I'll file a report for breaking and entering, I said carefully. There's cameras, remember? Don't call me again until you've calmed down. I ended the call before she had a chance to reply. Henry looked at me nervously and I rubbed my forehead, feeling a dull throb behind my eyes. I couldn't stand her. How had I dealt with her all these years? Is this how Lee felt? It was brutal. I didn't know what to expect anymore. I'd basically just declared war. But she couldn't take me down. I was too important. She couldn't lose her only heir. I'm always on your side, Henry told me. It might be tough from here on, I warned him. All the more reason, he said. When we reached my house, I hurried inside, not bothering to take off my shoes. Henley was standing in the living room, watching me as I descended the stairs. I rushed up to her, placing my hands on her shoulders, and searching for any sign of distress. Are you okay? She stood there for a moment, surprised. Then a blush spread across her cheeks and she tried to free herself from my grasp. I'm fine. I'm guessing you know your mother came. Don't worry, I handled it. Your mom got to me the first time, but she won't again. I told you that. You don't know her, I said. I don't know what she'll do to you. It didn't matter what she did to me, but Henley was a different story. I think Henley can handle your mother pretty well, Sebastian spoke up, a smirk on his face. Or from what we heard, I realized for the first time that Henley and I weren't alone. Sebastian, Ariana, and Brandon were all grinning. I was confused, because usually when people came across my mother, the last thing they'd do was smile. Henley grimaced. You heard me, Ariana nodded and giggled. Sugar daddy, Bennett, sugar daddy. Henley looked about, ready to strangle Ariana, and I raised an eyebrow. Maybe I'd been worried for nothing. Henley really could handle my mother. You always say strange things to my mother. Sorry, I guess I should think a little more before I speak, she said, scratching the back of her head. It'll probably lead to more trouble for you. I shook my head. I've come to terms with the fact our relationship won't make her happy. However, you make me happy. Therefore I am satisfied. Ariana, and Henley lowered her gaze, letting her hair fall in front of her face. She was shy. It was cute. Then I realized I was staring at her, and I cleared my throat, remembering there was a room full of people with us. I bet she'll kick you out, Sebastian said. I narrowed my eyes at him. This is my house. She can't kick me out. I paid for it to be constructed. Why does everyone think she bought it for me? Henley covered her mouth. She didn't. I make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Why would you think I couldn't buy this? I'm just kidding, she interrupted, and I realized I'd said something unnecessary. Fortunately, she looked more amused than annoyed. I shoved my hands in my pockets, trying to play it off. As long as you all know. Then Sebastian snickered, and I turned on him. Are you leaving yet? He shrugged. Maybe. I was going to offer to show Henley around her new house. That's right. The house was all set now. What if Henley left to check it out and decided she wanted to move in there, and then? What if she didn't come back? Why don't you stay for dinner? I offered, heading to the kitchen to check my supplies. I'm sure there's something you like. Smugly, Sebastian followed behind me. Why don't we make this a little party for Henley's last night staying here? Last night. I whipped around, knocking right into Sebastian. I pushed him aside, gaze catching Henley's. What? This is your last night? Henley shot Sebastian a look before shaking her head at me. No. I'll probably be here until the end of the week. I won't have time to set things up until the weekend. Her answer didn't make me feel better. But a week was better than nothing. Right. Yeah. Why don't we have a party tonight? Ariana chimed in, clapping her hands together. We can play games and drunk charades and stuff. Drunk charades, Brandon repeated. Ariana nodded vigorously. Yeah. It'll be fun. We need beer. I can go get some beer. Wait, this is Bennett's house. We can't make plans. Henley started. I jumped on the opportunity. It sounds fine, anything to get them to stay longer. Maybe they'd all move in. Maybe I was going crazy. I can go get the beer, Henry volunteered, finally making his presence known to the others. I didn't realize you were here, Henley said, sounding happy to see my assistant. Henry smiled at her. Nice to see you, I stared at him. Henry. I'll go with you, Ariana volunteered. We've met before. I'm Ariana, remember? I'll go too, Brandon and Sebastian said simultaneously. Henley rolled her eyes, and I blinked curiously at Sebastian. Usually he avoided liquor stores, something about his family's image. There was no way he would offer to go to one. You should stay with your sister, Sebastian said to Brandon. Ariana should go with someone she knows, Brandon countered. I'll go, Henley said. Though I'm afraid to leave Brandon here alone. Brandon folded his arms across his chest. You make it sound like I'm a criminal. Technically you are. Ah, whatever. Go. Make sure you don't just buy wine coolers. I can give you some cash. I pulled out my wallet, handing Henry the company card. Put it on this. Buy as much as you want. Ariana snagged the card out of my hand, smirking. No problem. It was that moment I realized she was born to be someone great. After exchanging a worried look with Henry, the trio left, leaving Brandon, Sebastian, and I alone. The pair in front of me kept sneaking looks at each other, as if sizing each other up. What are you two doing? I asked. Nothing, they chorused and turned away from each other. I frowned, but decided not to comment about it. Were you both listening to what my mother said to Henley? Was it bad? It wasn't anything unusual, Sebastian said. That was normal? Dude, your mom is a bitch. Brandon paused. his face paling slightly. Wait, sorry. She's your mother. I shouldn't have said that. It just made me mad when she talked to Henley like that. It makes me mad too, I told him. For lack of better words, my mother is a bitch. I can't and won't make excuses for her. She knows I draw the line when it comes to your sister, yet she continues to test me. Brandon watched me curiously for a moment. Do you really care that much for Henley? I nodded. Would you still care for her even if she cost you your inheritance? He asked. Do you mean you think my mother would threaten to take my company away? Just the thought made me smirk. That was the one thing she wouldn't be able to hold against me. That won't ever happen. Don't worry. She needs me more than I need her. He gave me a doubtful look. Even if I became penniless for Henley, it would be worth it. Brandon chuckled a bit and shook his head. Well, I definitely had my doubts about you, but I can see I was worried for nothing. Thank you for caring for her. I haven't exactly been the best support, so I'm glad she can rely on you. You can rely on me too, I told him, and his eyes softened. Then I added, after all, we'll be brothers one day. His eyes immediately narrowed. I could almost hear the scratching of the record, the tender moment vanishing. Hold up. Brothers, dating tends to lead to marriage. Sebastian snickered and Brandon covered his eyes with his hand, letting out an exaggerated sigh. I really don't want to discuss this right now. I'll pretend I didn't hear that. Were my words really so shocking? Of course I'd marry Henley eventually. It wasn't like I was dating her for fun. Why was he so upset by that? Maybe it was an older brother thing. I don't think your mother would like me anyway, Brandon said. She took one look at me and ran in the opposite direction. I furrowed my eyebrows. My mother didn't show fear in front of anyone. That's strange. It was strange, Sebastian agreed. I've never seen your mother like that before. Are you sure you've never met Brandon? Never. And you said you've never seen Bennett's mother before? Sebastian asked Brandon. Brandon shook his head. I think I'd remember someone like her. Sebastian pursed his lips to the side. What could you three have in common? 3, I said. Richard was Brandon's old lawyer, Sebastian replied. Why would your mom's lawyer defend Brandon when Richard was Brandon's lawyer? There was no way. If Henley could barely afford her rent, she wouldn't be able to afford Richard's services for her brother. Richard is her lawyer too. Brandon laughed. No wonder she looked so scared. She probably knew me because of him and didn't want to hear how shitty he is. He would have lost my case had I kept him. If there was one thing Richard wasn't, it was shitty. He was the best lawyer around. He could win any case. There was no way he'd come close to losing one. I looked at Sebastian, but I could tell he was already thinking further ahead than I was. It was the lawyer in him. He must have realized something was fishy. But what could it be? Did my mother even know Richard worked for Brandon? Or was it just a coincidence? It was hard to believe though. Where would Brandon and Henley get the money for it? It didn't seem possible. There's something weird here, Sebastian said, reading my thoughts. I set up a meeting with Richard to ask him about it. I'll come with you. I'll do it alone. Sebastian interrupted me. I just don't want you to miss work when your mother is already upset with you. Should we order pizza? If we call now, Henry could pick it up while they're out. Even though his change in subject was suspicious, I let him get away with it. I knew if he found something important, he would tell me. Sebastian's mind worked differently than mine. He could put things together when I couldn't. It was best to let him try to sort it out, whatever it was. I just hoped it wasn't too bad. When Henry, Ariana, and Henley returned, the mood lightened considerably. Judging by the amount of alcohol they bought, it was bound to skyrocket. We broke open a couple beers to drink with the pizza and we chatted around my kitchen table. It was a strange feeling to have friends in my house. Maybe it was because I'd lived in solitude without Lee. Maybe it was because the only friends I really ever had were Sebastian and Henry. I'd forgotten what it was like to have my place so lively. It was nice. It felt like a home again. Okay, time for some drinking games, Ariana announced after the pizza had settled. I bought the hard liquor for that. Brandon picked up a bottle of butterscotch schnapps and made a face. Really, what? Some of us can't handle pure alcohol, she defended. Henley held up a bottle of Fireball and Jack Daniels. So we got these two. Sebastian's mouth fell slightly. Are we going to die tonight? We can mix it with soda, Ariana said, waving him off. Okay. I'm going to tie 2 games together to make this more fun. Everyone choose a partner. I instantly turned to Henley. Henry, who was closer to her, also turned to her. I felt the urge to snicker. He thought she would choose him. PFFT, she was choosing him. She didn't even look at me, just headed straight toward him. I hurried over to them, slipping between him and Henley, giving him a subtle jerk of my head to get him to go away. He grinned and gestured for me to go ahead. I turned to Henley, my bravado disappearing as she raised an eyebrow at me. Will you be my partner? I mumbled. She laughed. Sure, since you made such an effort. The tips of my ears grew warm, but I did my best to play it off. I turned to tell Henry to pair up with Sebastian when I saw he'd already paired up with Ariana, which left Brandon and Sebastian, both who didn't seem happy with that conclusion. Looks like you two are a pair, Ariana said teasingly. I'll be partnering up with Henry. I'm going to call out a body part and you must stay attached to your partner throughout all the games. Every time you separate, you have to take a shot. Brandon and Sebastian, you two must attach your elbows. Can't we switch? Brandon asked. Those two know each other. They should be partners. It's good to make friends, Ariana responded. And if you wanted to partner with me, maybe you should have asked instead of turned to Sebastian first to say something unnecessary. Brandon scrunched up his face and shoved his elbow at Sebastian. I almost felt bad for Sebastian, but it was actually quite amusing to see him this way. He barely touched his elbow against Brandon's. In fact, within 3 seconds they had separated. Drink, Ariana barked. We haven't even started. You start the minute your bodies touch, she said evilly. Also, you just separated again. 2 drinks. Stop moving around. Brandon snapped at Sebastian. It's not my fault you're shorter than me, Sebastian returned, chin held up high. Brandon scoffed. You're not that much taller than me, Bennett and Henley. You have to keep your hips touching, Ariana announced. Henley looked up at me and grimaced. I'm not good at handling my alcohol, as you know, so try not to separate from me. She bumped her hip against mine and kept it there, shuffling closer so her body wasn't bent at a weird angle. With her so close, I once again became aware of how small and how womanly she was. If we were going to be close like this all night, I needed that alcohol. Henry and I will stay attached by our pinky fingers, Ariana said, touching her hand against Henry's. That's too easy, Henley complained. Should we touch our butts? No, Brandon and Sebastian said. Henry just blushed and broke his connection with Ariana, resulting in him taking a shot. Apparently he needed alcohol too. Ariana clapped her hand against Henry's free hand, getting everyone's attention. Since we have a big group and I happen to buy a deck of cards, we'll play King's Cup, Henley groaned. Oh man, I suck at this. Henry pulled on the knot of his tie nervously. He wasn't very keen on alcohol. The only times I'd seen him drink were when Lee or I dragged him out to the bar. I was pretty certain he knew the rules though. Lee liked to play drinking games. Still, Ariana gave us a quick rundown. Let's move to the table though. Move carefully or you'll have to drink, Ariana warned us. Henley and I started moving slowly toward the table, but it didn't take long for me to accidentally step away from her. Shots, Ariana cheered. Henley begrudgingly took a shot of the Fireball, sticking out her tongue and coughing after. So gross. It's like toothpaste. Bennett, try not to move around so much. I easily took a shot of the Jack Daniels and dragged 2 chairs close together so we'd be able to sit while still touching our hips together. I'll try. I'll draw the first card, Ariana said and took the top card off the deck. Ooh, 2. That means I get to choose who takes a shot. Easy. Brandon downed his shot. Then picked up a card. 7. Hands up to heaven. Everyone threw their hands up in the air. Sebastian somehow managed to smack Brandon in the face. "Sorry," he said, but he didn't sound very sorry. "You guys broke connection. Take a shot." The pair both sucked down their shot, Henley following in their wake as she was the last to put her hands up. She started swaying in her seat a little. And so the night went on, and the drunker everyone got. I was trying to stay clear-headed, but then went down the drain when someone pulled an ace. Then everything became a drunken mess. 9. Henley pulled. "Rhyme after me." "Warn." "Scorn," I said. "Forlorn," Sebastian said. "Adorn," Ariana said. "Corn," Henry said. "Porn," Brandon snickered. "Pervert," Henley called out, slamming her fist on the table. "Ha! That doesn't rhyme." "Take a drink," Brandon responded, shoving the half-empty bottle of Fireball at her. Henley glowered at him, taking a swig right out of the bottle and nearly coughing it right back up. I stood to pat her back, breaking our hip connection. "Heh. Nice," Ariana grinned, kicking her feet up onto the kitchen table. "Drink up, baby." I leaned over the table, then shoved her legs off it, causing her to almost fall out of her chair. "No feet on the furnishes. Pick a card," Bennett Henley said, taking the next card off the deck and handing it to me. I reached for it and she pulled it back. I reached for it again. She pulled it back again. I narrowed my eyes at her. "All right, take it," she said, handing it out to me. Just as I was about to touch it, she yanked it back and started giggling. "You're lucky you're cute," I told her. "I know," she said, finally allowing me to take the card. "Queen," I said. "What is this one again?" "Ask a question," Sebastian told me. "Then someone has to ask someone else a question. You can't answer it." I nodded multiple times to show him I understood. "How much is your net wealth income?" I asked Ariana. She stared at me, then turned to Sebastian. "How are your arms so muscular?" Sebastian flexed and then looked at Brandon innocently. "Are you a virgin?" Henley snickered and Brandon opened his mouth then snapped it shut. "Nice try." "Ariana, how much do you love cats?" She sucked in a deep breath of air, like she was about to burst. Then she vigorously shook her head. "No, I won't answer that. Cats are cute though." "Henry, I really need you to answer my question. Please don't ignore me. It'll hurt my feelings." "What is your middle name?" Henry swallowed nervously. I could tell he wanted to answer. He couldn't refuse someone who asked so nicely. His eyes searched the room as he tried to resist the urge to answer Ariana's question. He waved his hand in front of his face, as if airing himself out. There was no way he'd ignore her. "Brandon, birthday," he finally got out. Brandon smirked. "Henley, are you still afraid of Sasquatch?" Color darkened Henley's already red cheeks. "Afraid of Sasquatch?" I smiled. She was so cute. And she smelled nice. And she felt nice. She was nice. I giggled. A couple more questions shot by, but I couldn't pay attention to them, too mesmerized by Henley. A permanent grin was on her face. It was beautiful. "Bennett, who do you love?" Ariana asked, pointing her finger at me. "Henley," I answered. "Drink," she cried, laughing maniacally. "You answered." The weight of the answer went over everyone's heads. Maybe it even went over my head. But it felt good to say it out loud. Maybe when I was a little less drunk and a little more confident, I could say it to her face at a time where she would remember in the morning. "I love Henley too," Henry shouted, causing Ariana to jump beside him. "Me three," Ariana said, leaning over Henry to pat Henley's forearm. "She's cute, isn't she?" "Oh." I went to pinch her cheeks. I grabbed her sleeve, lifting her hand off Henley's arm and pushing it back at her. Ariana overdramatically fell back, her force causing her to fall off her chair. Sebastian immediately jumped up, tripping over his chair in haste to get to her side. "Are you okay?" Henley and I tilted our heads to the side so we could see her. Ariana waved her hand to get Sebastian to come closer. "Help me. I've fallen and can't get up." "I'll help you," Brandon said, rolling up the sleeves of his shirt. Sebastian didn't hesitate to slip his arms under her and easily lift her off the ground. "So this is what it's like," she sighed. Sebastian grinned, turning toward Brandon, Ariana still in his arms. "What a man I am. I can lift her too," Brandon said indignantly. "Hand her to me." Sebastian lifted her higher, like Rafiki raising Simba. "No," Henley burst out laughing, banging her hand on the table. "It scared me and I jumped back, breaking our connection. I thought about skipping the shot as everyone seemed distracted, but then I caught gaze with Henry." He pointed to the shot, then slowly dragged his pointer finger across his throat. "I took it as an if I have to do it, you do to look." I threw it back, not realizing it hadn't been watered down. Then it really hit me. "Lift me up too," Henley said to Sebastian, putting her arms up in the air. I immediately grabbed Henley's hips. No way was I letting Sebastian look like a hero. Then I heaved, letting out an exaggerated groan. Henley moved maybe an inch. She turned to me, expression blank. "Well, I figured you looked pretty scrawny." "Well," I easily lifted her over my shoulder. "Just kidding. I'm super strong. That's not how you carry a girl," Ariana said from Sebastian's arms. Brandon kept trying to grab her, but Sebastian just twirled in a circle to avoid him. "I'm going to puke," she warned them. "A great scenario," Henry muttered to himself. "Yes, me too," Henley mumbled, knocking on the back of my leg. "You proved your point." "Let me down." I stumbled over to the counter, not trusting myself to be able to put Henley down without losing my balance. It felt like the world was tilted a little. Still, it was awkward setting her down, and I might have set her down on her face. Her glare was anything to judge by. "You're cute," I told her, putting my hands on her forehead and smoothing out the wrinkles. "Even when you're pretending to be mad. I want to kiss you." Instead of waiting for a response, I gave her a little peck. She grinned. "You taste like alcohol." Suddenly I heard a thump, and Ariana cried out, "Man down." I turned to see Henry passed out on the ground by my couch. Henley gasped, hopping off the counter and hurrying to him. "Are you okay?" "I know now," Henry said, gazing at the ceiling. "Know what?" I asked him, crouching down. The end. "I see it." "Should we call an ambulance?" Brandon asked, looking at me. Henry shook his head, using the couch to pull himself into a sitting position. I'm fine. I can take another shot." "Give me one." "I wouldn't do it," I said, but Brandon was pouring him one anyway. Henry gazed at it determinedly. "Screw you, writer's block," he yelled, gulping it down. "Yeah. Wait, do you write?" Ariana asked. Henry nodded, then opened his mouth to reply. He snapped it shut, suddenly turning green. I didn't like the look of it. "Bennett, get a trash can," Sebastian called. But it was too late. Henry spewed like a volcano that had been dormant for too long, all over my VIG Chesterfield sofa. Henley whistled lowly. "Guess I'm not sleeping on the couch tonight." Then and there, I silently vowed to never let Henry get drunk ever again. Bennett's BOV. VZZZT. VZZT. VZZT. Fuzz filled my aching head and I groped around my bed, trying to find my phone. What I grasped instead woke me up instantly. Henley was right beside me on the bed, tangled in my silk sheets, wearing only her bra. Before I even had a chance to gasp, she opened one eye, not even bothering to lift her face from the pillow. "Did you just touch my boob?" A deep flush settled on my face and I coughed, noticing my mouth was absolutely parched. "Yes?" Accidentally I croaked out. My tongue felt like sandpaper. Henley grimaced, closing her eyes tightly. "I'd be mad, but I feel like death. It's like the desert is overtaking my mouth. Where is your shirt?" As if just realizing she was indeed shirtless, she shot up, sheets slipping from her body. "You could at least pretend not to stare." It took a few seconds for her words to register. When they did, I whipped my head to the left, bringing on the hammers knocking on my brain. "Ow, crap. I don't even have a shirt to change into," she sighed. "Where is it?" I asked again, covering my eyes with my hand. partially for her privacy, partially because even the small bit of daylight coming through my window was like the blazing sun. Henry puked all over it. Don't you remember? I thought about it for a moment. It hurt to think. No. Henley patted my shoulder and I opened my eyes, noticing she'd wrapped the sheet around her chest. Yeah, it's like all those shots hit you at once. 1 second you were about to fire Henry for puking, next you were clinging to him and telling him how much you appreciated him. With all that puke all over him, my head snapped down. I realized I was also shirtless. Your shirt is off because we did the dirty deed, she said casually. I stuttered, unsure whether the wave of nausea I was feeling was due to my hangover or her words. You know, we tied the true lover's knot. I'm sorry, I managed, struggling to keep myself calm. She titled her head at me curiously. You're sorry, you can't give consent while drinking and I can't remember, so in case I pressured you at all. Wow, she said, blue eyes widening. You really are a good person. I feel bad for making that joke now. Joke? She smiled sheepishly. We actually didn't do anything. When you hugged Henry you got puke all over your shirt, so you took it off. Please tell me I threw it out. You tried, but I didn't let you. You can just wash it. My gaze traveled down my laundry basket and I saw the shirt in question. The whole basket would have to burn. Suddenly queasy, I lowered myself back onto the bed. Remind me to never drink again. Let me go get you a glass of water, she said, sliding off my bed. I watched as she stumbled out of the room, smiling as I noticed she was in a pair of my pajama pants. It figured the one time she spent the whole night in my bed, I didn't get to enjoy it. It would have been nice to feel her soft hair tickling my nose, her warm back pressing into my chest. Breathing in the scent of her shampoo. VZZZT, VZZT, VZZT. My phone rudely displaced me from my daydream and I fumbled around for it, ready to tell the caller off. When I saw Mother flashing on the screen, I tossed it back onto the bed. Her voice would do nothing for my headache. VZZZT, VZZT, VZZT. Are you going to answer that? Henley asked as she appeared again, a glass of water in her hand. No. It's too early to deal with my mother. It's past noon. Bennett when I checked my phone again. There were over 10 missed calls from my mother. Here, Henley handed the water to me. Drink some? I have ibuprofen if you need it. I took the water from her, but not the medicine. My prescribed medicine was the only thing that could take out any ferocity of my headaches. This one might have not been caused by a migraine, but I couldn't be sure it wouldn't build into one. VZZZT, VZZT, VZZT. What could she possibly want? I said, deciding to answer it. It probably wasn't best to test her while fighting her about Henley. However, this time it wasn't my phone going off. Henley picked hers up from off the floor, pressing it to her ear. Hello! Instantly her lips thinned, her body tensing. It's Henley. And what are you talking about? I glanced at my phone, suddenly feeling a wave of unease roll through me. How can they even do that? I did it in self-defense. Watch the freaking cameras and you can see that, she cried. This was over 2 months ago. Why is it coming up now? Her fist clenched around her phone, her cheeks becoming red. I didn't do anything wrong. Her. It took everything I had not to rip the phone away from her and deal with whoever she was talking to myself. Anyone that made her upset didn't deserve to talk to. Fortunately, it seemed to be a quick conversation. I'll be there. She snapped into the phone before ending the call with a shaking hand. I can't believe this. What's happening? That star-spangled moron guy from Michelangelo's is trying to sue me for assault. It took a second to process her words because of how outrageous they were. Curtis was trying to sue Henley for assault. How could that be? Both her and I were witness to his actions. Why would he even bother to try and win against our words? Why would he even bother to sue Henley to begin with? He had nothing to gain from this. Henley pressed her hands to her temple, groaning. This is so not what I wanted to deal with today. Not with this hangover. We need Sebastian, I told her. Let's find him and get ready and stop this before he takes it any further. I don't want to pressure him. He'll do it, I interjected, whether he wanted to or not. Sebastian was one of the best lawyers I knew. Being accused of assault is serious. With the wrong defense attorney, he could win a lawsuit against you, even though you're innocent. She hesitated, chewing on her bottom lip. I guess you can take a shower in here. I'll use the other bathroom, I said as I swung myself out of bed, snatching my phone up, and heading to my closet. We both got ready as quick as possible and headed downstairs together, searching for Sebastian. Ariana and Henry were wedged together on the couch, and Brandon lay face down on the coffee table, snoring loudly. The sight would have been hilarious had the circumstances been different. Sebastian was sitting at the kitchen table, reading a newspaper while sipping a coffee. "Good morning," he greeted us warmly. I noted that he showed no signs of a hangover whatsoever. However, he did miss a button on his shirt. But as unusual as that was, it wasn't important. "Henley needs your help," I told him. "Remember that guy from Michelangelo's? He's trying to sue her." Sebastian's eyes slid to Henley and he folded up the newspaper. "Do you have the recordings of the incident? Has Curtis tried to contact you?" "No," she gasped. "But I don't live at the address listed on my license. He could be looking for me. That's probably how Colin found out about it, that moron. Is it bad if it looks like I'm avoiding him? We should go to the restaurant," Sebastian said. "The first thing we should do is get a copy of the surveillance video." The color drained from Henley's face and she nodded. For the first time, she looked scared. Just as I was about to reach out for her, Sebastian placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's okay. You didn't do anything wrong." "I don't understand why he's trying to bring it up now," she responded, folding her arms over her chest. VZZZT, VZZT, VZZT. My phone went off in my pocket. I went to ignore it, but paused. Why would Curtis bring it up now? Even after I warned him. What could Henley have done to him to make him sue her? Or what had Henley done to someone? It hit me like an icy brick. There was only one person above me who Curtis knew. My mother. "Sebastian, I'm trusting you to help Henley deal with this," I spoke, trying to keep my voice even, my hands curling into fists at my side. "You're not coming with me." I avoided Henley's gaze. Something came up. "Oh, all right." The defeated tone in her voice caused me to turn to her. She frowned at me, like a puppy who'd been abandoned. How could anyone do something like this to her? I couldn't let this happen. I reached for her, pulling her firmly to my chest. "We'll fix this. Nothing will happen, okay?" she mumbled. I pulled back a little, searching her face. She attempted to smile at me. "It's okay. Don't look like that," she told me. "I'll be fine." Yes, this was Henley. Headstrong Henley, who wanted to comfort me when I wanted to comfort her. Gripping her shoulder, I pressed my lips to hers, hoping to keep some of her worries away. She leaned into it and I thought maybe she was trying to do the same. "I'll see you in a bit," I said as we broke apart. Her nose wrinkled as she smiled. "See you." As Sebastian and Henley readied themselves to leave, I woke up Henry, who I realized was only in his underwear. It wasn't a position I'd ever thought I'd see my mousy assistant in. Clearing my throat, I prodded him in the shoulder. "Henry, wake up. Not in the office," he mumbled. "Henry, lock the door." I shook him roughly. "Henry, stop being disturbing and wake up." Finally the brown-haired man awoke, sitting up and accidentally knocking Ariana off the couch. Henry took one look at me and then covered his mouth, letting out a disgusting belching noise. Before I could open my mouth to order him to get ready, he was off running to the bathroom. I realized Henry probably wouldn't be of much use. "Ariana, please stay here until Henley and Sebastian return. Have Henry pick up something to eat. Make sure Henley eats it. Not just a couple nibbles either, a lot of it." She blinked at me blearily. "All right, she might be sad, so cheer her up for me. I think just letting her know you said that to me will make her happy," Ariana responded, smiling. I cleared my throat. nodding to her before heading to the front door. If my mother turned out to be the person behind this, I wasn't sure what I'd do. Unlocking my BMW, I slipped in, turning the engine and peeling out of my driveway. The state of my appearance must have been shocking, because when I arrived at the hotel, everyone was staring at me. I straightened out my shirt as I got in the elevator, doing my best to ignore everyone's gaze. Was it really that bad? The mirror in the elevator proved their surprise reasonable. My hair was a mess and still wet. My shirt was rumpled from not being ironed, and I'd forgotten to put on a belt, so it didn't stay tucked in properly. And as much as it hurt my impression, I couldn't find it in me to care. I marched into my mother's office, not bothering to knock. Her phone was to her ear and she looked up from her desk, eyes narrowing. As she took in my appearance, her mouth dropped. She immediately hung up her phone. "What do you think you're doing coming to work dressed like that? Was it you?" I asked. The smirk that crossed her lips was enough of an answer. "Why would you?" I began, my muscles taut as I tried to hold in my anger. My pulse pounded in my ears and I felt flushed. I couldn't remember the last time I'd been this outraged. Curtis had every right to sue her, Bennett. "Don't be mad at me because she has to accept the consequences of her actions. You incited him into doing it." "I know you did. I have done nothing wrong," she said calmly, picking up a pile of papers from her desk and flipping through it. "If that is what you've come here for, you may leave. Fix your appearance before you come back." I strode up to the table, taking the papers from her and strewing them across the floor. "Call him off." She fixed me with a cool stare. "Stop acting like a child. I won't stand by idly as you try to ruin an innocent young woman's life. Then leave her. If you do that, I will have Curtis drop the lawsuit. No, if sending her to jail is the only way to get you to leave her, I am not below it. She is insignificant to me. She's simply a girl who doesn't know her place in the world. And what is her place in the world? What is our place in the world? When will you stop pretending we are so different? We were all human. We were all equal. In the end, we all end up in the same place 6 feet below the dirt." My mother slowly stood from her desk, making her way toward me, like a cheetah stalking her prey. "You two are not equal. This whole company, our family, rests on your shoulders. She's a hindrance. She's already changed you. You would have never treated me with such disrespect before. She hasn't changed me. I changed me." She stopped a foot in front of me. The heady scent from her name-brand perfume sent a wave of revulsion through me. "My point remains. As long as you're with her, I won't have Curtis call off the lawsuit. I'm sure I can think of a way to get him to call it off myself," I stated, giving her the hardest look I could manage. "You will not take any steps to stop him," she responded confidently. "What makes you so sure? If you do, I'll take away your rights to the company. I'll take away any stocks you might hold. I will tell the board members you will never have what it takes to become the heir. I will keep your fortune from you." I almost found it comical. Henley had basically predicted she would say this. I should have known. This was the only thing she could hold over my head. She should have known it wouldn't work. I never wanted the company to begin with. I would rather be poor and happy than wealthy and miserable. My words hung heavy. I expected her rage. I expected her curses. What I didn't expect was a small, haughty laugh escaping her lips. It caught me off guard. Why was she laughing? Was she not taking me seriously? "You thought I'd be shocked by this?" she asked, trying to mask another snicker. I was at a loss for words. This wasn't I was expected. It made electricity shoot through my veins. Something was wrong here. I knew this feeling. As always, my mother had the upper hand. Bother her. My mind worked frantically. What could she be holding over me? What gave her this confidence? If I didn't become the heir, no one would. Yet that didn't seem to forget who I am. She spoke again, this time much more quietly, much more deadly. "You forget I know you. You won't intimidate me into anything. I don't need to intimidate you, Bennett. I know your weakness." My skin crawled. My weakness. What was my weakness? I could only think of one person. Henley. You will become the heir to the company. You will break up with Henley." With each word, her wicked smirk grew wider. "I won't," I said, but my words didn't sound as strong as I wanted them to be. "You will," she repeated. "Do you want to know why you will?" Nothing she could say would change my stance. Nothing could tear me away from Henley. Nothing would work on me. She leaned in closer, her smile becoming almost demonic. Because the next words out of her mouth ended every ounce of fight in me. It ended any resolve I had. It ended everything. It ended me. Henley's POV. On the way to the restaurant, Sebastian explained how a civil case worked, and what I should expect of it. He didn't think Curtis had made a complaint yet, only threatened it. Our plan was to swing by the apartment after to see if I'd received a summons. I tapped my fingers against my thigh as a queasiness set in my abdomen. It wasn't that I was afraid of being sued. At worst he would demand all the money in my savings account, but rather if he decided to take it a step further and press charges against me. What if I lost then? Would I go to jail? What would happen to Brandon? Noticing my anxiety, Sebastian reached over and squeezed my shoulder. "It's going to be okay. I'm actually a pretty good lawyer when I want to be." I gave him a small smile. "I don't doubt that." Colin wasn't very pleased to see us when we arrived at the restaurant. He stuck up his nose, turning his head away from us as he guided us to the back room where the computer for the security was. "This very well make you lose your job here," he said to me. "Just like your restaurant will lose its reputation when it gets out the manager lets customers get away with sexually harassing the waitresses," Sebastian responded coolly. Colin's beady eyes squinted at Sebastian. "And who are you?" Sebastian reached into his jacket pocket, producing a business card, and handing it to Colin. "Sebastian James. I'll be representing Henley should Mr. Vaughan follow through with his suit." Colin examined it for a minute and then his face paled, his demeanor changing immediately. "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. James. I didn't realize it was you. Did your father send you?" "No, I'm here as a favor to my close friend." Sebastian smiled courteously at Colin as he gestured to me. "I hope we can settle things quickly. Well, I have nothing to do with this, but I'll help you in any way possible," Colin said quickly. I scowled at him. What an asky, sir. When he noticed me watching him, he puckered his lips. Turning away from me, he opened the back office, allowing us to enter. Sebastian walked over to the security screens. "I want the footage of the full duration of Henley's shift. Isn't the assault on Curtis enough?" Colin asked. I rolled my eyes. "It wasn't an assault. It's prudent to keep all the footage," Sebastian said, his eyes narrowing. "Why? Will it be a problem?" Colin swallowed audibly, eyes searching the room, avoiding Sebastian's gaze. "I'll pull up what I can." Sebastian and I exchanged glances. What did he mean? Pull up what you could? I knew for a fact the recording stayed for 3 months before being slowly cycled out. The footage was most definitely there. And yet it wasn't. When Colin forwarded it to the time of my shift, the cameras facing the table Curtis had sat at, and the cameras facing the bar area where he tried to grope me, were grainy and blank. It didn't make any sense. The cameras rolled 24/7. There was no way they would be blank. For some reason the cameras weren't working, Colin said, his back to us. "It's unfortunate, but did you delete the footage?" I cut in. "They weren't working. Did someone tell you to do it?" I demanded. Colin went stock still, and I knew I had suspected correctly. Anger surged through me that was illegal. And yet Curtis was trying to sue me when he had tampered with evidence. Sebastian grabbed Colin's shoulders, forcing him to turn around. He closed in on him, balling Colin's shirt up in his hand. Colin's eyes were wide as Sebastian leaned forward intimidatingly. "Who told you to?" "I see, can't say. I'm assuming you know tampering with evidence is a criminal offense. I can easily take this from a civil to a criminal case. You know our success rate." Now Colin's eyes nearly bulged out of their sockets. I could have laughed, had I not been so pissed. "Who told you?" Sebastian repeated. "Don't make me take you to court. I kept the original footage," Colin squeaked. Sebastian's grip tightened. "Where?" It's on the flash drive in the computer. I promise. It has everything. You can take it. Sebastian pushed Colin to the side, letting him go. The older man stumbled, his face ashen and forehead sweaty. I forced my way in front of him as Sebastian opened the file on the desktop, pulling up the footage. True to Colin's words, the missing footage was there. And you could clearly see Curtis touching my ass before getting punched. Who are you going to give this to? Sebastian asked, ejecting the USB from the computer and pocketing it. Colin pressed his lips together tightly. Was it Curtis? Are you that scared of him you would break the law? I asked, still in disbelief he would even try to keep the footage from us. I was certain if Sebastian hadn't come with me, I wouldn't have been able to get anything from him. I always knew Colin was skeezy, but didn't think he would drop this low. I don't think it was Curtis, Sebastian said lowly, holding Colin's gaze. I frowned. Huh? Who else would it be? He shook his head. Never mind. We've got what we need. Let's go. I have someone to see. Oh, sure. As we left the room, I peeked around Sebastian's back and raised my fist threateningly at Colin, giving him the dirtiest look I could muster. We walked back to Sebastian's car in silence. He seemed to be deep in thought, completely missing the handle when he went to open the door for me. What did you mean you don't think Curtis is the one who told him to delete the video? I asked him. It's odd. Curtis should be afraid of Bennett. But who would scare him more than Bennett? It didn't take too long to think of the one person who's scared even Bennett sometimes. My mouth fell open. You don't think, but the question is why is she doing this? Obviously because she thinks I'm not good enough for her son. Yes, but, Sebastian trailed off. I can't believe she hasn't given up. If anything, this is doing the opposite. I'll stay with Bennett just to spite her. I paused. Well, I mean, obviously I want to stay with Bennett because I like him too. That's the main reason. Spite is just an added incentive. Sebastian didn't seem to be listening. It wasn't the first time he'd said something strange. I didn't like it. It made me feel like I was missing something. Something important. Are you hiding something from me? From the way Sebastian's head jerked, I knew I was right. Nothing. Why? He said. You are, I accused. I tried to think of what it could be, but nothing came to mind. It was frustrating. Was it about my brother's lawyer? Is that why Mrs. Calloway had been so shocked when she'd seen my brother? But what was the connection? I couldn't think of anything. Bennett and I hadn't been together back then, but Bennett and Brandon had been at McAllen's at the same time the night of my brother's accident. Could she have seen Brandon there? But even so, why would it matter to her? Was it because Richard lost my brother's case? Did Mrs. Calloway hate that it tainted Richard's record? Or was there something else? It's something I'm curious about, but I don't want to say anything until I'm 100% sure of it, Sebastian told me, interrupting my thoughts. Because if I'm correct, we're facing a much larger problem than just your relationship with Bennett. I didn't like the sound of that. But don't worry about it right now, he added. I gave him a flat look. Yeah, because that's so easy after what you just said. But I trust you. I know you'll tell me the truth if it involves me somehow. I will, he promised. For now, let's see if you have a summons. My old apartment looked more decrepit than ever. I now understood Bennett's reaction when he saw it the first time. It wasn't livable. I smiled sheepishly at Sebastian as I slid out of the car to check the mailbox. There was nothing. No summons. So either it hasn't arrived or he hasn't done anything yet, Sebastian said as turned the car around, heading back toward Bennett's house. I'll go and speak to him tomorrow. I want to talk to him too. He frowned a little. It's probably best not to. I don't want everyone to fight my battles for me. I appreciate what you all are doing, but, I trailed off, shifting in my seat. I don't like feeling useless. Hearing you say that, or Bennett say not to worry, makes me feel like a damsel in distress. I thought Sebastian might try and argue with me, but instead he grinned. I understand. I'll let you know when I arrange a meeting with him. Don't forget me, I warned him. I won't. When we pulled back down Bennett's driveway, I noticed Henry standing outside by his car, 2 suitcases in his hands. As soon as Sebastian parked his car, I hopped out, walking up to the scruffy-looking secretary. Apparently he hadn't gone home to change yet. "What's up, Henry? Where's Ariana and Brandon?" "I brought them to Ariana's house." I nodded. "Good. One less hassle for me. What are you doing with those suitcases?" He put down the suitcases, running a hand over his brow. "Bennett told me to gather your stuff and bring you to your new place." I raised an eyebrow. "He wanted me to leave, after the amount of times he'd asked me to stay. Something wasn't right." "Why?" "He also told me to tell you he's deposited the rest of the money from the contract into your bank account." "Why?" I repeated, my chest suddenly tightening. Now I knew something was going on. Why was he bringing up the contract again? Wasn't it no? Why would he pay me? Henry took a deep breath, preparing himself. Bennett said one more thing. "That from now on, there's nothing between the two of you. Any relationship you had, it's over." His lips continued moving, but I couldn't understand any of it. I couldn't understand anything he was saying. I wouldn't understand it. Was he trying to play some kind of joke on me? Why would Bennett say that? It didn't make any sense. Everything had been fine a few hours ago. There was no way his feelings could change so quickly. "Henley," I set my jaw. No, that's bullshit." He was practically begging me to stay with him. How could he do a 180 and kick me out? Henry's eyes widened and I knew I should have calmed down, but I was pissed. Bennett was ending things. Through Henry? I couldn't believe it. There was no way Bennett could think I would accept this. I pulled out my phone, hitting his contact with trembling fingers. His phone rang once before going to voicemail. I rang it again, and again, and again. Each time it rang once before his message tone would play. "Sebastian, can I have your phone? Henley, please." Sighing, he handed it to me. I searched for Bennett's contact and hit call. On the second ring, Bennett picked up. His voice was low and scratchy. My voice caught in my throat. I thought I knew what I was going to say. But really, I just wanted to find out if he was ignoring me. I got my answer. "Stay calm, Henley. You better get your Hugo Boss suited ass back here right now and explain things to me. So much for being calm." His quick intake of breath indicated he hadn't expected me to be on the other end of the line. "If you think you can just get rid of me like this, you're wrong," I said quickly. "Please tell me this is a stupid joke." For a second I thought he was going to say anything. Then I heard his breathing hitch. "It's not a joke. Don't call back." The sharpness in his voice startled me. This couldn't be Bennett. He wouldn't speak to me like that. Beep beep. I stared hard at the phone in my hand, feeling heat rush down my neck. He hung up on me. "Where is he?" Henry cleared his throat. "I can't tell you." "Why?" "He doesn't want to see you." "Why?" Henry flinched and I immediately felt guilty. This wasn't Henry's fault. I shouldn't be taking my anger out on him. He was just doing what he was told to. "I'm really sorry," he apologized softly. I closed my eyes, trying to collect myself. "No, I'm sorry. It's not your fault. I just don't understand. Where did this come from all of a sudden?" "His mother," Sebastian suddenly said, and then everything clicked. Bennett wouldn't do this. His mother should have been my first thought. Something must have happened between the pair. Something bad enough to make him go this far. Anger replaced any hurt. I cracked my knuckles. "That bitch is going down." "Henley, wait," Sebastian interjected. "Before you can deal with Bennett's mother, you need to deal with the current threat of Curtis suing you. Attacking his mother won't help that situation." I hated that he had a point. Now there was no doubt in my mind Mrs. Calloway was trying to set me up. She was the one who told Curtis to sue me, and she was the one to tell Colin to delete the video recordings. If I wasn't careful, I knew no matter what Sebastian did, I could get nailed with the blame. So it was best not to go after her. Yet, "Let's head back to your apartment for now," Sebastian suggested, glancing at the sky. It looks like it's going to rain. I didn't want to. I wanted to stay until Bennett showed up, so I could demand that he explain himself and apologize and we would be fine. I refused to believe he was doing this to me. Sebastian put his arm around me and guided me back to his car, informing Henry that he'd drive me to my apartment. I led him, unable to find it in me to fight. Bennett probably wouldn't be coming home anytime soon if he was avoiding me. Anyway. "Are you okay?" Sebastian asked, breaking the silence in the car as we pulled away from Bennett's. "I'm okay," I said. "Well, I will be. I'm sure there's a reason for this. Bennett isn't the type to do this. I'm sure he'll be calling me to apologize soon, or at least that's what I told myself. There's a reason for this. Bennett wouldn't do this." I could repeat it all I wanted, but there was that little ball of doubt in my mind that did believe this. Bennett was always out of my league. Maybe he realized that. Maybe he never thought of our relationship as a serious thing. Or maybe it was me. I'd never even told him how I felt about him. I always just assumed he knew. Never once had I said to him, "I like you." Maybe he thought I wasn't worth the fight. Someone who was too self-conscious to tell the man she wanted for herself that she wanted him. I refused Sebastian's offer to keep me company when he dropped me off at my new apartment. For now I wanted to be alone. I dragged my suitcases up the steps, unlocking the door. The place I would be calling home felt cold and unfamiliar. I found myself missing Bennett's uncomfortable $1,000 couch. It almost made me laugh. Never would I have thought I'd ever miss that thing. "Phew," I said out loud, turning on the lights in the living room. The apartment hadn't been furnished yet, so there were minimal decorations and furniture enough to get by with, but not enough to make it feel like home. I sat on the couch, my hands in my lap. "Okay, Henley. You're okay. Just take this time to relax. Don't think about Bennett. Don't stress yourself out." That frame of mind didn't last long. My thoughts wouldn't stop. All I could think about was Bennett. I realized I must have been in some form of shock. Nothing was settling in. Nothing was really hitting me. I kept trying to come to terms with it, but couldn't. In my mind, I would wake up tomorrow to Bennett trying to skip out on work. He'd say something ignorant and then apologize. It was what made Bennett. As if on autopilot, I pulled out my phone and hit the call button next to Bennett's name. It went straight to voicemail. "Jerk," I mumbled, tossing my phone away. It was clear to me that he'd blocked my number. If Bennett thought he was going to get away with this, he was wrong. We were going to talk whether he liked it or not. I wasn't going to give up on him that easily. Not unless it was what he truly wanted. Until I heard that from his lips, I wasn't going to let him into our relationship. I promised to fight. And I would.